All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order a special meeting of the Aldermen, 16th of May, 2022. Would you all join me to pledge allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call, please.
Alderman Becker.
Updated here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Rose. Here. Alderman Rucker.
Here.
Alderman Osteen.
Barely here.
Alderman Schuman. Here. Mayor Robinson.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm like, I didn't forget anybody because I went all the way around the room.
I was waiting for my name.
I did.
Oh, I can hear it.
You're just not listening.
I'm here. Yeah, bad hearing. Seeing no unfinished business, I think the only new business we have is with Gina.
Well, I will start this. Appreciate it. I know that the biggest question I've got all week, last week, is how long do you think this is gonna last? So we do have a lineup of every department. This second year we've done this. The departments, a few of them have submitted stuff that we put in the packet. I know a few might have handed out some extra things that, just were in front of you. I do have to apologize. I was so worried about getting everybody else's stuff in. I realized today that my little budget sheet wasn't in there. So I do apologize. I don't have a lot of detail, but I did hand that out as well. Everybody we've given, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the department. So not that I want them to talk fast, but the goal was to, kind of go over what's your successes, what's your challenges, what's happening to date, how do we think that may affect the next 8 months before we get together again. Just basically where you're at today, and I asked them, tie anything into the board's strategic items from the past few years, and also remember your performance measures. So this is an opportunity for the mayor and board to get information that will lead up to your all strategic planning session they do all day next month. So we're just gonna go down the list, and I probably will eyeball the managers if I think they're going too long, but this is your all's meeting, mayor and board, so if you have questions, we're here as long as you want us to be here. My budget update, I know there's several sheets here. I'm really just gonna go over. I know you can take it home and digest it. I'll be glad to go as much detail as you'd like. Unfortunately, the audit is not complete. In past years, we've had kind of a draft audit by this point in the year. It's no fault of us. I know, Terry, it's just the timing of the auditing company and their employee situation and stuff. So we've not even got a draft. Once I get a good draft and or very close to finalization, I reconcile the beginning cash and equivalent balances from the previous year. So I've not done that, so keep that and a few other points I'll get to in mind with this kind of a snapshot of what our total budget was from adopted, what we've amended it so far. Now I know this packet that you also got for Thursday has a few budget amendments on there as well, so that does include those. And then really where we have where we think we're going to estimate the end of the year. Now, it's a big crystal ball. We've still got 8 months. However, there are some trends that are occurring that I really wanted the departments, especially Public Works. I'm not picking on Public Works, but they've had a lot of projects, a lot of activity, and seeing what those trends are. How do we think that next 7, 8 months is going to look like? So my fear was I didn't want to get to the end of the year or budget time this fall, and the mayor and board's like, wow, we ate our budget cake one bite at a time, and wow, what happened to it? I don't want that to ever happen. So we've processed a lot of budget amendments. We've still probably got some to come. So I tried to do a snapshot. But keep in mind, I don't have the beginning cash balances reconciled. I know there were savings from previous year where we think we're going to spend money we don't. But there might also be the other way around. So it was unfair for me to give you any kind of positive estimate until I know for sure. I also didn't really reconcile revenue. unless I seen something that was really trending high or low. But there's two exceptions to that. One, we know sales tax is up right now, the latest percent, we know it is, which affects the general fund, transportation fund, and CIT fund. However, that's only a percentage of those budgets. So we do have other line items. I don't see that they're way under, but they might be trending normal. So I didn't want to pre-spend that increase at this point until we get the audit and know more about the other line items. There are some grants that move in tandem with the projects. For example, leasing fund. You know, when you get millions of dollars worth of grants, that revenue is going to flow in tandem with as we spend the money on construction, and that affected the previous year. So you see some differences in leasing fund because of that. The other section that I really did not do estimated calculations on is the personnel section. So long story short, O&M and capital are really what I estimated. The reason I didn't get into that detail is we know we have vacancies and we know the timing of hiring that we're likely going to have savings in those sections. And when I get that audit and I get a true budget update, which I hope will be in June, more information will be available for those expenses. But overall, transportation, water, and sewer are the biggest affected. We have amended our budget, and after Thursday, in the tune of over $1 million. Our budget is 34 something. This does not include the TIFs, so exclude the TIF departments. $1 million sounds like a lot, but also $500,000 of that is matched by grant amendments as well. So if you want to turn to transportation, water and sewer, I'll just hit a couple highlights to see what we're estimating. So Kevin was really good about going back to his department, seeing the trends. Construction costs on about every project we brought before the board, as you know, has been up. Some of those projects in transportation are reimbursed through Osage Beach Special Road District and MoDOT, one we haven't got to. So we will reconcile that a little better, but they are trending up. So I asked Kevin, let's go back through your O&M, and is the trends you're seeing, do you think that's going to affect it in the same amount it's affected the first quarter or nearly first half of the year? And for transportation, we do expect about another $30,000 to go over in O&M or capital expenditures because of some projects. You can see the effect on the bottom line there. But not a huge difference. Yes, we've amended some projects. We've used about half of our unrestricted based on projects we chose to move forward, even though they were over budget. I will adjust the grants and reimbursements because the Osage Beach Special Road District projects may be affected a little bit. Because sometimes the Osage Beach Special Road District will say, I'll pay 100%, but only up to a certain dollar. And we know one of those projects has went over and they've chosen not to increase their reimbursement. So you will have a little bit of a fix there. So that's really the activity is transfer to other funds. One caveat here, this is tied directly to leasing fine. Leasing fine, the oil spill that we're dealing with, which hopefully in the future we will get a reimbursement of some sort from the state. Because of that, but in the meantime, the board did approve, or getting ready to approve that budget amendment to proceed with that correction of that oil spill. Leasing fund is very cash sensitive. It has to balance in cash because there's just not cash. So because we're going to spend that extra dollars, all else being equal, I am requesting an additional transfer over to leasing fund. Now, should or when we get to that point where that oil spill is corrected, then we can always reimburse transportation back. So, water and sewer are seeing very similar activity. Little increase in operation and maintenance so far. We do expect about 40,000 more potentially to come to the board. And when it comes to water and sewer, equipment needs, repair needs, vehicles and equipment repair needs, and fuel is affecting those two things. And the fuel is obviously what's happening to everybody's pocketbook when it comes to fuel, but additional repair and expenses are due to just unforeseen repairs and things. So that's sewer. or water. So the one caveat I wanna make with sewer, which actually is good news, partial good news. We have seen, as you can tell, an increase in operating capital and capital expenditures due to cost of things and unforeseen expenses that needed repair to the system, which I know I'm not gonna get in the weeds of. We've kind of crossed those bridges already. But one thing that if you notice, the estimated year-end expenses for sewer is less than what's been amended in the budget to date. There are a few lift station projects in the capital account, so it's not a true savings that are not gonna happen, that likely happen this year. They will really be rolled over to the next year, they're tied to the Tantera estates. So I can't really say it's a true savings, but I do think the budget itself will be less in sewer, which will help maintain or start to replenish that reserve account until such time those repairs will be done. So I do expect that. You will see a little bit of you'll see a negative balance in unrestricted. That is not how we will end the budget, but I do think, again, there's gonna be some savings in personnel and there's gonna be some adjustments in revenue. So we will watch that to make sure it's not a negative number, but I think that will work itself out.
Just one question. We know so far we're tracking 8% over either last year or budget. I'm trying to remember, right? And you just chose at this point not to make any projection of any additional revenue, which is fine, but there's, assuming that rate stays, and it may not, and it could change, that's where you're thinking some of this is gonna work itself out.
I do, I think because that's just one revenue line item, so you do have fees and services. So I think between that, and once I balance with the audit, with the cash flow, I can recognize those beginning year balances that we weren't planning on having, because when you're expecting to spend X and you don't spend as much, that really increases your cash available. So between those two things and personnel expenses, I think some of these will work itself out. It's not as sky falling as probably we were thinking.
Gina, when do we actually anticipate getting some audited numbers?
Well, Carrie and I were just talking about that. They have to be published, what you said, end of June, they have to be published, so we're hoping to get a draft in the next few weeks. Is that fair?
Yeah, the state, for some of the state reporting is required for submitting for our annual award program. It's required. I'm being told by the auditors, do not worry, but they're shorthanded like everybody else. We thought we were going to do everything online, but they still think they might actually visit and do some field work on site. So I actually expect to hear from them in the next few days.
And as soon as that's done, then I will do what I normally do, my true budget update with audited numbers. And I'll have that done.
Gina, sales tax.
Yes.
We don't receive sales tax evenly throughout the year, obviously. But when you show it in the monthly, or when April does her monthly spreadsheet that we get from her, she shows it as monthly if we're under or over.
I'm not
Can you give us-
familiar with
Is
how
there
it's in the,
availability of what our sales tax revenue is historically? In other words, we don't get 1/12 of it in January, we get something more,
I can
something
almost tell
less.
you to the point of the percentage. July through December, we typically get anywhere from 53 to 56% of our total sales tax between July and December. Now, of course, that's a 2-month lag, but when we receive it. So we're still the first 5 of 6 months, which is, 47 to 43 or 4%. So we still are our biggest months. But on my sheet, I actually track over or under budget based on those percentages. So I do track it based on history.
So this is tracked based on the history.
So, yeah, the report I give you monthly, my projections are broke down based on that historical collection.
Okay.
So that is all I have. If you have no further questions on numbers, we're gonna move on to Cindy, Ed. We're gonna move on to Ed first.
Rats.
The numbers for the law department are what they are, and it's all fine. There's no obvious discrepancies or anything, expenses we have. Make sure everybody knows you have the TIF applications, the hard copies delivered by the developer of the Osage Beach Outlet Mall. It's the application and then the draft TIF plan. We distributed those to taxing districts, school board, county, hard copies are in the mail. So we are set. The next step will be the PGAD will review this for you. If you have questions, okay, or as you get questions as you look at this document, I would be happy to get it to PGAD, or, you know, let's put together, I would like to put together a frequently asked questions list, submit to them and make sure that they answer everybody's question the same. Some of you may have the same questions multiple times, which is fine. The other thing was, as I was just sitting here doing nothing, I did think that the best way to do it is I wanted to bring a couple things to show you some of the back office stuff that I do that you don't normally see unless it goes south and shoots craps. And the guy in the gods of litigation provided me two wonderful examples within the last couple of months. As you know, there was a very important Supreme Court of the United States case called Reed versus Town of Gilbert about 5 or 6 years ago that essentially gutted the ability of municipalities to regulate signs. We've had this sign issue goes on and on and on. The court had a very divisive opinion in Reed. There was no great consensus, but by the time you got to 5 votes, it was pretty hard on local government. In April of this year, the city of Austin versus Reagan National Advertising made a big change in Reed. And what I do, and it doesn't affect us until we get a complaint, but what I do is I read all this wonderful stuff and try to figure out where it's going in terms of your sign code and be ready to advise Kerry if he gets questions with how does this affect it. What the court had previously said was that you couldn't read a sign and then make a decision. Now that was really extreme. What City of Austin says is, well, yeah, you can read the sign as long as you're not discriminating against what it says, okay? Fact is, this is the only way you can actually prohibit an off-premises advertising sign is to read it. If you can't read the sign, you can't prohibit an off-premises advertising sign, and you can't manage it, okay? So the City of Austin versus Reagan National Advertising restores a significant amount of authority to local governments to say, we're gonna have 5 off-premises signs per business, no off-premises signs per business, off-premises signs will be such and such a place. As long as we know it's an off-premises sign, we can regulate that so far as we're not discriminating against what the sign says itself. So that's one of the things that I do. The second one, well, it was another gift from litigation. I haven't even finished reading, I haven't even read this one the first time yet. But this is a Missouri Supreme Court case, a Missouri Court of Appeals case. It was very important. It relates to the city of Creve Coeur in St. Louis County denied a conditional use permit to someone who wanted to put up a convenience store. And they got their butts kicked. Their ordinance was so strict about what it took to get a conditional use permit, it literally left no discretion in the city to say, no, we don't want you to put your little convenience store there, okay? So this is one I've got to finish reading and then I'll talk to Kerry about. But that's the kind of thing that sometimes you guys wonder what I do. Well, this is sort of like trying to be sure it doesn't blow up in our faces before. Aside from that, municipal court is under control. The change from our paper process to show me courts has gone fairly smoothly. It's gone smoothly because Annie Wallander, who's our court clerk, and Gary Smith, who's our municipal court judge, are very easy to work with and accommodating. They're not obsessed with the minutia of the process. They're obsessed with getting the justice right in the courtroom. So they have been aware that this is a big change for everybody and a big change for the defendants and the defense lawyers. The municipal court continues to chug on in its normal way of doing things. We are still adversely affected by Senate Bill 5 and some of the court reforms after the disaster in Ferguson 5 or 6 years ago. Those court reforms limited our fine authority for a small traffic violation. What we used to be able to tell the defendant is, well, it's $500 in court costs if you really want to make us think about it. Now it's basically $193.50 plus $31.50 for court costs for a small one. That's very limited fine authority. That literally means that that's the fine you pay for a DWI around here, is the $193 plus $31.50. And that's a step backwards in terms of the clout the judge has to enforce it. But that's the way the rules worry. There's no point in crying about it. We just work within the rules they give us and go forward from there. Aside from that, it's going to be an interesting couple of months TIF-wise, and watch this space. And I'll answer any questions anybody has. Shoot.
So in the budget last year, there was some service level indicators, performance measures, and didn't know if you were, one, are they going to be expanded maybe to include some of the court? And two, if you're tracking well, or how are you tracking against those?
Okay, frankly, my job is so chaotic, it's hard to track against it. I can give you service level indicators if I make everybody sign a piece of paper every time they walk in and ask for advice. But that way Mike Welty would spend most of his time writing me memos. In terms of court, yeah, we can do some stuff on court, and probably will push the municipal court stuff, because that is now such an automated process. It comes from the police chief's ITI system, and we generate those, so those numbers should be easier to do.
Okay, good. We look forward to it.
Cindy?
And I didn't do paper. It's electronic. So I just want to start by kind of reviewing the successes that we've had with recruitment, hiring, and retention and human resources. We've improved our hiring process by 300%. We were at 58 days, and our average in the last 6 months is down to 18 days. We were able to do this by reviewing applications sooner. We posted Public Works Tax 1, 2, and 3 to get experienced employees, completed backgrounds faster. We've did our offers contingent on successful completion of the background and pre-employment screenings. We used to do the background prior to the offer, and then did contingent on just the pre-employment screenings. We increased the communications with the applicants, and department managers' assistance increased, was invaluable. And the hiring process that I'm using on this is when the applicant applies versus when we make an offer, because that is the process of the hiring process that we can control. The applicant might not see the ad or the posting for a while or something like that, but this is the days from when the applicant actually has applied online and when we make them an offer. We've improved recognition. We have the Employee of the Year program, which also includes the Employee of the Quarter. 2022 evaluations include check-ins and the 360 evaluation process. And we've completed a leadership training for managers and supervisors that covered recognition. We've also increased our competitiveness in the labor market. We've increased our starting pay citywide. We've identified hard-to-fill positions and adjusted those salaries, pay rates, law enforcement, 911, and public works. We've identified an experience percentage above starting salary. We are offering a $1,500 hiring incentive. They get $1,000 on their first check, and after successful completion of probation, they have a $500 hiring incentive. We're offering an employee referral program for $500, and we've successfully had, I think, 5 employees receive $500 for referring new hires. And we've implemented the police officer recruit program, which has been very successful, and we currently have 3 police officers on the force now that completed that program. We've improved pay and benefits to retain employees. For 2022, the board is gracious and gave all employees a 7% premium merit increase. on top of the merit increases that we already have for the pay plan. We offer a $1.50 per hour shift differential. We've moved to common date performance evaluations, which has eliminated any past due evaluations. We've had 0, everybody was on time this year. We added the police academy reimbursement. We reduced the employment obligation for tuition and police academy reimbursement. We increased education and certificate incentives. We recently added 2 holidays and we added the additional 1% 401 match. Another success from HR and risk management is I was able to delegate some of the risk management duties to other individuals, and I greatly appreciate their assistance. I have a dedicated half person that works half with the city treasurer's office and half with HR. The administrative assistant to the city administrator, thank you, Jan, is assisting with communication and training, and we started the HR Currents quarterly newsletter. The police department secretary is assisting with all the testing and interview process for 911, ambulance, and police department law enforcement. And the building department secretary is assisting me with the background check references. We've also increased employee involvement. The Employee Betterment Committee began meeting again in 2022. I began meeting with police department employees over their shift changes on Monday evenings. And I go and I office at Public Works on Tuesdays. And an employee survey to be completed during the 3rd quarter. These numbers here will reflect that everything that we are doing has been impacted positively. The turnover rate back in 2020 was 30.1 for full-time positions. 2021, it went to 19.8, and through 5/16 today, we're at a 7.1 turnover rate. The terminations process and the new hires is just information on what we do through the HR department. In 2021, we terminated 51. You have to remember that we also just recently started processing our umpires through payroll, which we used to do that through our accounts payable. So we will hire them and terminate them every year. And then 2022, we've terminated 6. 4 of those were full-time. New hires in 2021 was 37. Year to date, it's 22, and 15 of those were full-time employees. So I'm going to go probably pretty fast here. So if anybody has any questions, just stop.
When did the 360 review program go into effect?
It's in 2022, and they will be completing it in July.
And you know,
So
that's
it's
something
part
I
of
was
the-
pushing for, so I was
so-
curious on when that was.
Yes, so it's part of the 2022 evaluation.
Okay. Question number 2, on the $500 referral basis, do they receive that after probationary period for the referral employee
No, they receive that when they are hired.
when they are hired? You think that's smart?
I don't know, I haven't, so we talked about it, the Betterment Committee and everything, and even the management team, we talked about it. And it was just the consensus that we would try it when they were hired. Just recently, I think, I have to be for sure, but I think we've only had 3 that didn't make through probation. And I don't even know if any of none of those were even part of the 5 that we had that received the employee.
Do they get to keep the 1,000?
Are you talking about the employees? Yes, the employees get the $1,000 if they don't complete it. He is talking about the employee
The
referral.
incentive referral program.
My philosophy behind that, this is really why I pushed to give it to them, because once somebody refers somebody, it's out of that employee's that's referring's hands when that employee makes it through their probationary. So I did not want to hold an employee that wants to put their neck out to say, hey, I really got somebody that's really good applicant. Their hands need to be washed at that point. Whether they make it, whether they make the job or not, should not fall as a disincentivized money dollar. So that's really why I.
In some places, they do it like you get the first 300 whenever you refer the employee, and then after they meet their 90-day probation or whatever, they get the additional, and that does kind of incentivize them to refer quality applicants versus just whomever to get the initial $500 up front. Is that?
And we talked about there across the board, whether you're the city or private, they do it across the board. We were just really wanting employees to step up and refer, and it never something we've done. And at that time, I just didn't want to I just felt like whether they make it or not, I understand what you're saying, because it says like, oh, okay, well, so if it goes, we can reevaluate, but initially to get it started, we just really wanted employees to step up and refer, and I didn't want them to feel harmed, like, they're not involved in training and everything, which we put parameters on that.
And I will say, there was a couple of employee referrals their referrals did not make it through the hiring process.
So they didn't get there.
All right, I'll finish when I go through these. Back to the 360 review program. Will we as the board receive copies of what that's going to look like as far as the questionnaire or the forms will be completed for that?
Yeah, I can give it to you, yeah.
Next question, seasonal employees. I'm curious on why we don't log them as seasonal layoffs as opposed to terminations. I know a lot of it's semantics, but then a lot of it goes back to liability as well, because there is less options for an employee who is on a seasonal layoff to come back to the city claiming benefits, unemployment, wrongful termination, et cetera, than to, I don't call them terminated employees. I'm just curious on why we don't
I
differentiate.
just haven't brought the data down that far. I mean, I could probably bring it down further and say, full-time employees versus seasonal employees versus part-time employees versus umpires.
Yeah,
I think it'd be better if you could do that. It gives us a truer picture. I agree with Bob 100%. That was one of my items too.
Yeah, and this goes back to our turnover rates as well, because like you said, since we're processing umpires through the system now, basically they are hired and then terminated, which goes against our hardline number on turnover rates, which isn't necessarily effectively the true number.
Yeah, our turnover rate is full-time employees only.
That's full-time employees only? Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a breakdown on how many seasonal employees do we terminate at end of season?
It depends. I mean,
Umpires, concession stands, et cetera.
maybe with umpires, maybe about 30, 25, 30. Depends on the number of umpires and how many seasonals we can get. Right now, we have, six in parks with seasonal, and I'm not even sure how many umpires we're up to now, but I think it's close to 12, so we might be right around at 20 now. We're understaffed for seasonal concessions right now, but.
All right, I think we're definitely looking to the termination versus a seasonal layoff,
Okay.
just to get some numbers and get an idea of what that would look like for us in the city. Do we have any other departments that have seasonal employees other than parks and rec? I know airport has.
Yep, airports has them, and then
Just like one.
Off the top of your head, can you tell me on the different departments how many you have
there's
seasonal?
one in each of our, one in each of our airports. And then we haven't filled your seasonal yet, but those are two part-time employees that you have. They work year round.
Okay. That's all I have. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yes.
Cindy, just to reconfirm then, so when a new hire, they're not on probation?
Yes, they're on.
Well, they are.
They're on a
For how long?
6-month probation.
For how long?
A 6-month probation.
6 months, okay. With that being said, insurance benefits, does that start immediately the day that they're hired, or is that after their probation's over?
So by law, it can't start later than 90 days if they hired.
90 days?
But ours starts after the 30 days at the beginning of the next month after 30 days.
Okay,
So if you start July 7th, your benefits will start September 1st.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Cindy, do you provide our current employees with a benefit breakdown similar to what you have here? In other words, if I've been working here for 10 years, do I really know what it costs the city for me to come to work?
I haven't done it for a long time. As a matter of fact, it is on my last page here on things to start back
I
out for the
think that is
benefits.
a very
summary.
important thing to do. I used to do it as in my operations, and people didn't realize what it really cost.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of cost behind the scene that there is. And I'm not talking about getting down to the nitty gritty of what it costs us to have toilet paper and bathrooms, but
Right.
And with that in mind, with what you have here is very good. But there's one area that I wanted to bring up, and that is your retirement.
So you look at, are you looking at the report that was in the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and just basically, you don't really need to look at it, because the main thing I want to mention is, what about Social Security? You don't bring up.
Yeah,
that's a
that is included if
that's a
we do the
benefit.
benefit statement, but, right, Social Security, the 7.65%.
That's a benefit that needs to be shown. And the other thing is the work comp needs to be, again, people are aware of what that work comp can be, that's overall cost to us.
Yeah, and that would be included in the benefit statement as well as the cost of their workers' comp.
And then the other thing I want to mention is, I know you'll remember it, because I do remember it. A couple years ago, when I came in your office and said, Cindy, our hiring process is not acceptable. And I raised Kane with Gina as well, said it's not acceptable, we've got to do something. Thank you, I appreciate your work on it.
You're welcome. But it was that citywide, the way all the managers helped. I just can't look at the hundreds of applications that come through, and with our electronic system that we put in place, it's really expedited this.
You cut days off different pieces of it, and that's all I ask for, and it's help out to decrease that time.
And I'll echo with Cindy, the fact that you guys let us invest in the yoga. I know it's taken us a few years to get one module down and the next module, but I know I don't have as many direct hires as the other departments, but I can tell you it's a lifesaver.
Thank you.
Yes.
So even though you got to report it all, everybody here recognized department heads that all performance appraisals are done on time. I think that's a first, if I'm not wrong, since I've been here at least.
Yes.
Maybe for a long, long period of time. And that's huge because from a culture standpoint, I believe. But good job, everybody. On the referrals, I'll just say that to tag on to what, I'm not sure where Kevin was headed, but when we start calculating the cost of hiring new people, with our turnover rate down at the level it's at, even if some people don't last, the referral program may be worthwhile and pay them up front, because at the end of the day, once they get it, I believe in people, and I don't believe people will recommend poor people to be on their team with them. And once they refer them, it's out of their hands. And so I believe, I completely agree with and support what you're saying, Gina. I know it feels kind of weird, but at the same time, they have no control on whether they're hired or not. The supervisor makes that decision, and then the supervisor has a culture within their department that hopefully builds upon that decision, and those people stay long. So I completely agree with that. As far as the employee survey, Cindy, do you have, is that going to be through NeoGov? Is there going to be an outside entity involved?
And we're going to try to go with an outside vendor.
Okay, I would hope we do, because I think we need a third-party look at
And
that.
it's time, you know,
It's
we
way
had
past time.
promised
It's
4
way past
years
time.
ago, it's like, let us do on our own, get our bearings, well then COVID and changes and anything happens, so it is, I agree with you, it's overtime.
And then the last thing to Bob about turnover and part-time, I think maybe it should be tracked, but it should be tracked separately, and especially if you're basically been tracking turnover for full-time employees only, we shouldn't mix those two numbers.
No.
Since we've got a historical baseline, I don't think we should change that baseline, but I would recommend that if you want, and I think it might end up telling us something, we might track turnovers within the year for part-timers and see how that program is really doing and what, because we got a lot of turnover in part-timers, then at the end of the day, we think we're saving money by having part-timers or something. I know we can't have full-time umpires, I get that, okay? But at the same time, with the turnover that we're having with part-time, we may find out that it may just be better to hire a couple of part-time or full-time people and just keep them on if we're having a lot of turnover within a 6 or 8 month period for part-timers.
We're having very little turnover with our part-time.
Okay.
With
Well, we don't
seasonal-
know if they're being
Right,
we're not tracking it.
I mean, I track it, but I didn't.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So we have very little, and then with seasonals, what we like to do, especially with the park, is get the seasonal maintenance workers. They're college students, and they're coming back. So the 2 that we had last year are returning this year. So those 2 seasonals are coming back. Our largest challenge right now is seasonal concessions. We did lower that, and I have it in here later on. We did even lower that to the age of 16 to work in concessions. And it still hasn't helped very much. We're still getting very few applicants for that.
So just for clarity, is seasonal different than part-time?
Yes, part-time works year-round, and seasonal is just going to work within a defined few months.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I'm just understanding.
Wouldn't it help our turnover rate on those seasonal employees though, if, going back to what I stated previously, instead of them being outright terminated from that position, if they're on a seasonal layoff, therefore they know they're guaranteed a job coming back to the next season.
Yes.
Therefore, they're more likely to basically know, hey, starting in May, I've got a job lined up, as opposed to I'm terminated in October from this job, maybe I'll reapply, maybe I won't, maybe I'll get a different job. I think it would help our retention in that aspect.
And I think maybe my terminology of termination is inaccurate because our seasonals, if they're worth coming back, they do know and they are asked to return next year. Like our two seasonals with parks, we asked them last year when they left if they would be interested in coming back. We do have two seasonals for concessions that this will be their third year, I believe, that's coming back. So even though we don't, in their mind, they're not terminated from their jobs, they just know that they don't have any more work for seasonal workers and they're available to come back whenever. As a matter of fact, our seasonal concession stand workers sometimes work when we have our lights in the park, our holiday light program. They'll come and help assist with those hours as well.
But as far as the paper trail, are they still basically being purged from the system as no longer employed with the city? Once they're going back to terminated versus laid off?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I can figure this out and keep that separate.
I mean, it would probably obviously help reduce the paper trail.
Right.
And like I said, I think it would help with the retention rate as well, to basically, as opposed to saying job is ended, please come back next year, we'd love to have you. And a seasonal layoff, they're saying, yes, you have a job here already.
Yeah, they don't have to reapply, they only have to do their pre-employment drug screening to come back.
Okay, follow up with us on that, please. All this seasonal versus,
Yeah.
layoffs versus terminations.
They can do that. Okay, so this slide here basically shows that our 7% merit increase, premium merit increase that all employees were given last year, basically succeeded in doing what it was needed to do to bring our numbers in our quartiles. In 2021 at the budget, we had 63 individuals in quartile 1. And this year, at this current time as today, we have 38. We have 20 in quartile 2 versus we had 12 last year. Last year, we had 7 in quartile 3 and 4, and this year, we have 27. I do want to make sure, and I put the years in position over there because I think it's very important that the year in position, the reason that we have so many below our midpoint is because we have 52% of our employees have less than 5 years in their position. Now, the in position is different than their length of service with the city. This includes promotions and everything throughout the city. So these are individuals and their time in their position. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we have succeeded in moving through the pay plan like we meant to do. I do know that budget, I will probably be bringing a discussion to talk about the quartiles and maybe instead of having a premium again this year, maybe just increasing the merit percentages that we do have to make sure that we stay on top of that and don't get behind it again and be a little bit more aggressive.
I like you to direct that whole conversation to me and Richard.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
Subconsciously, she knows you guys are gonna.
Probably based on last year's meetings, that's probably smart.
This basically is a snapshot of our current workforce. We have 100 budgeted full-time positions. Currently, we have 85 that are filled. We have 15 vacancies, 1 position, the construction inspector, is currently on hold. Voluntary terminations to date are 8, 6 of those were full-time, and 2 of those full-time did retire. And so year-to-date, we've had 0 involuntary terminations. The length of time in position is 3.5 years. The length of service is slowly dropping. I think that's a national trend. We had 7.4 in 2020, and we're down to 6.8 years in 2022.
Okay, real quick question. The construction inspector, does that report to Public Works or is that wrong?
That's the engineering one, and since that's part of most of that job is being absorbed right now through Cochrane, because that position was vacated because that person moved to the building.
Okay. All right. That's all.
This is just a list of our current vacancies. Concession workers, construction inspector, which is currently old. We have 6 vacancies in dispatch. Applications are being accepted and we're doing ongoing testing and interviews. Economic development specialist, application are being accepted as well as interviews and testing are being done. Lead dispatcher, police officer and police recruit, we have 2 vacancies. 1 offer has been accepted and they are in the process of completing their pre-employment screenings. And we recently hired a part-time police officer. That's a former police officer that worked here, but to help fill in for the vacancies that we currently have right now. Police analyst, they're in interviews. I think, I don't know, Todd, it seems like it's been like 10 interviews so far, but we've had several, quite a few applicants for that position, so they're interviewing that now. Records clerk, evidence custodian interviews are in process. We have sewer technician, applications being accepted, and transportation technician, we have applications being accepted.
So is that vacancy rate any higher than lower than, say, approximately this time last year or at the end of the year?
So I will tell you that at one point in 2021, we had 25 full-time vacancies.
So it was 25%.
Yeah, so we have made some leeway. I just wanted to point out, I think everybody received this, but with our employee of the year, we did have employee of the quarter, and I just wanted to recognize April White, Lexi Morley, and Caleb DeVore. They all done a great job, and their peers elected them as their first quarter employee of the year recipients. I also want to give a round of applause and a thank you for these 4 ladies. These ladies are making our 911 center go. They are the full-time staff there. We have 2 part-time that are working very few hours. These ladies are keeping it running. And I don't know where the city would be without these ladies. But I just wanted to point out and thank Lexi, Laura, Wendy, and Christy for a great job they've been doing.
Sorry, there should be how many pictures up there?
11.
11 total.
Okay. Thank you.
So you said we had 1 or 2 part-timers that helped a little bit.
Yeah,
It's less than total 8 hours of paper.
yeah. So for a 24-hour 7 operation. So anyway. Okay, so we're gonna go into risk management. Risk management, this is property and liability claims. The one on the left are all the claims that we look at and process. And the ones on the right are ones that we file with city's insurance. The ones on the left include ones that we correct on house or that we actually file with our individual's insurance because they hit city property or their vehicles have hit our city vehicles, things like that. Or they're denied. The workers' compensation is there also, the numbers that we have there on the trend. So, any questions or anything on those numbers? Workers' compensation rates, I just received notification, 5% increase effective July 1st. Premiums are based on the class code rates, which went up 5%, the salary and the workers' compensation experience modification. As I said at the recent board meeting, our workers' experience mod did go up from 0.72 to 0.77. However, that is an extremely strong workers' comp experience mod when the average is 1. Property and liability rates increased 4.5% effective July 1. That premium is based on rates, salary, and insured values. I haven't had time to look into the actual meat of the invoices to see how much insurance, the rates went up, how much is going to have an impact with our salaries or the values of city property. Challenges. Filling positions, as we know, dispatcher position is very challenging. We need to identify short and long-term solutions, increase hourly rate, recruit program, area certificate program, joint center, HR, and command staff is trying to find solutions to this ongoing national problem. So the chief and Lieutenant O'Day and Mike and Gina and myself will be scheduling a meeting here either at the end of this week or early next week to continue those discussions. Police officers, it's getting better. Currently we only have 2 vacancies. One just had a recent offer and we have hired a part-time individual to help with some of the vacancies, the hours that the vacancies have created. Concession workers, as I said, we've lowered the age to 16, still are getting very few applications or applicants. Umpires, whoops. We're competing with all the local leagues with a small pool of trained umpires. So I'll be working with our new Parks and Recreation manager to see what we can do to help with the umpire situation.
Questions?
Yeah.
Back to risk management. Do we carry just a blanket employee dishonesty coverage on our master policy, or do we have a separate fidelity bond for theft, employee dishonesty, et cetera?
Well, I believe, okay, so we do carry a couple of bonds for city treasurer and the city collector. But on top of that, we have some coverage under
Just a
our,
blanket on the master policy for the city, okay. And only 2 people under fidelity bond coverage?
yes. Yes.
I know we talked about a year and a half ago, and I'm not sure we talked about it now or when Todd presents, but have we developed a, for lack of a better term, a comparison and a sell sheet, for lack of a better term, of loggers versus what we offer for the police officers?
So I've got that later on to talk about,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Yeah.
And then somewhere can we talk about what we think we should do differently for the 911 dispatchers? Because I don't know that we're doing anything differently other than we give them 7%, but that,
We've got, like I said, we've got some things in the works that they're probably big in the sky that's unprecedented, but I don't know that we have details to, whether it's, how do we go about our area having a joint center? Okay, that may take years, but it's like, you know what, if you don't start the conversations now, we'd love, but also Cindy's worked with the school to try to get a training program because that job just doesn't come in without training. That's just going kind of slow. So they have been putting their, brainstorming, putting the information together. It just, nothing's really coming to fruition.
and to tie that, do we have ongoing contracts with some of the other,
Fire department, the Osage Beach Fire Department are the
Osage Beach
only
Fire.
ones. Now, Todd and I was working on numbers for Todd because we got a request from another police agency. And, bluntly, I told the lieutenant and the chief, I was like, I'll give you numbers, but this is not the right time for us to gain calls right now. Like, yes, we could handle it if we were at staff, but you really have to tell this agency, look, here, all else being equal, this is what it's gonna cost you and this is what's gonna save you money. But in my opinion, operationally, we don't have the capacity, and so it's just never going to work. It's like,
Yeah, we don't have the staffing in there now to take on additional.
well, I'm not sure what we do about the staffing, but I'm sure people are looking at us thinking that we have the staffing and they can't figure it out. So maybe part of this answer is figure out how to get the staffing in and reflect those costs in those contracts. I personally believe Osage Beach Fire Department's got a really sweet deal, but we'll leave that aside for right now. But we need to keep that in mind. We don't owe them, and they don't want to create a new 911 system for themselves. We've actually got quite a bit of leverage, and while we want to be a good partner, I think at the same time, with the way things have changed over the last couple of years, they're wanting to build a fire department or new fire buildings and all this stuff a mile down the road because it's just not quite close enough. Well, holy crap, don't tell me you can't afford some of this 911 stuff that they complained like crazy about when we raised just a couple years,
Right.
2 or 3 years ago. You'd have thought we were, bending them over a barrel over the whole thing, okay? But yet they think they need, so anyway, I won't get on my high horse, but we need to be careful about that and utilize our leverage in my mind. I'll leave it at that.
and I will say on those loggers, Todd and I actually talked about it. It's time to update those numbers. Loggers have made some significant changes over the last few months that has really garnered some, so it's time to revisit it. It comes up every few years, and what I will say on loggers, this is what I told the chief, it's like, you really have 2 things you're issuing. The fact that the city decides to add loggers to the benefit package, yeah, that can be done. Starting this day, this is what absolutely be done. The part that is expensive is then deciding, do you go back and buy back people's time? So all the new employees from here, it's a future decision. It's affecting the ones from this point forward. Absolutely, we can rearrange the benefit package, decide that's not the problem. But what the long-term employees were really after several years ago, it's like, okay, well, I've got 20 years service, I want you to buy that back. That's going to cost the city millions and millions of dollars. And that also just needs to be tackled separately to understand. So really, it's 2 issues. Can we add it as part of the package? Sure, we can work around those legalities from this point forward. Everybody hired from this point or whatever, but it's really buying back time. It can be a decision made, but it will cost millions of dollars.
Just for clarity, I have no interest in us going to loggers.
No, I know.
Okay, and I think it'd be a terrible decision to do so. The problem is we keep defending ourselves because we don't have loggers. And what I believe we should be doing, and so he's gonna get to it, I'll be quiet, we should be in front of it. And we should be telling people up front why we believe what we have is better than loggers. Because I had a conversation the last budget with two gentlemen that are on our police force, and, you know, I explained to them why I didn't like loggers. And I won't take everybody's time up, but if anybody has any questions why, I'll be glad to tell them. But once I explained to them that, I think I kind of made them pause at the very least and wonder, well, maybe not loggers isn't such a great deal, okay? And it seems like we continue to defend why we don't do loggers instead of explaining up front as we hire why what we do is better than loggers. And that's the sell sheet that I'm talking about, so I'll let you get to that.
Richard, just to go back to the fire department's communications agreement is up for renewal this year, so we'll be bringing that to the board.
And Todd or I are
Before the end of the
updating
year.
all our numbers for our cost assessment on the system, or on the center.
I want to piggyback on something Richard said about loggers just then. Maybe it's more of the stance of we should be explaining why, instead of why we don't have it, we should be explaining why we don't want it. So therefore, we're still defending our decision, but in a different light, as opposed to saying, here's why we don't want it, not why we don't have it.
Anything else? All right, another challenge that we're having is with our executive time. It's our electronic time management system. We're continuing to have ongoing problems with executive time. Staff is working with executive time and Tyler Technologies, who also has our financial software in code, to solve problems. Mark and I have a meeting with them tomorrow. But staff is beginning to identify other vendors to provide an electronic time management system, just to look and see what other avenues that we do have if we continue to have the problems that we're having. Again, keeping up with strategic priorities for HR and risk management responsibilities, the day-to-day duties for HR is a challenge. I'm looking, I need a backup to administer as an administrator for executive time and NeoGov. I do have NeoGov training for several individuals to be scheduled within the week. I've already had conversations with NeoGov, and we're going to be getting some additional training. And then another challenge that we're having is background process for the police department. Our detective bureau does that process, and it's a very thorough process for law enforcement. And so it does take them a little time. We have looked outside, we have utilized outside, but the cost was just so expensive. It ended up costing applicants as well as the city. So Lieutenant Day and I decided that wasn't for us. So it's still a struggle, and we're still trying to find different ways to address those challenges. The future focus for HR and risk management is to administer an employee survey, increase communication for benefits, including the 401, 457, and all of our retirement, the safety and wellness programs, safety training and wellness programs themselves, review retirement program to include defined benefit and defined contribution options. I think it's time for us, like Gina said, that we could go ahead and do a comparison like we did a few years ago. So I can go ahead and we do educational classes for all of the employees to give them that time. At that time, I did bring in our retirement representative as well as a loggers retirement representative to speak to the employees. Fitness center, short-term replace the treadmill to use loss control credits that we have with NPR. And then long-term, we're looking at the layout and the equipment. Review third-party administrator options for risk management claims. Take a deeper look at the risk management claims data. Distribute benefit statements is hopefully will be maybe in the fourth quarter, we'll be able to get all that together. Leave policy, which I've been trying to get to for a couple of years, but that would be combining our vacation, our personal time to a PTO or a paid time off basis. And then just to continue to assist all departments with their HR and risk management needs. That's all I have. Is there any questions?
You had mentioned issues with our current payroll system, or our timekeeping system,
Yes.
executive time. How have we been using that system?
Well, since
Too long.
2018, we started the implementation process. The implementation process lasted a long time. It was horrible.
18 months.
Huh?
It lasted 18 months.
Yes, and at the same time, we were implementing NeoGov at the same time, which was so much easier to do, but the time and systems, we just are having a lot of outages with the services and everything. I think we seem to always hit during payroll week. Then access for the employees or the time clocks are going out. It's just, we have a variety of issues with there. We've been sending the work orders in, they've been doing the process, but we've kind of elevated it through a couple of emails. that we told them, hey, this is, we're having problems. What do we need to do to get out of our contract?
We're currently looking at other vendors.
And yes.
Personally, I wanted to put them on notice last year. Cindy and Mike talked me off the ledge, and I do understand because it's a big decision. And I said, you know what? If this was any other system, we'd have dumped them a long time ago. But I do appreciate the fact that we need to think and make sure if we make this change, it's for not out of our desperation that we pick a different vendor. So I do appreciate Cindy and Mike kind of expediting that. It's like, let's pick the vendor, make sure it works, because the police department's very specialized, and they've got points that they have to, with scheduling and stuff that we don't want to give up that. But yes, either they're going to fix it in a very short time, or.
What other vendors have we been looking at?
We just started identifying the ones and looking at them. Neo Gov that we work with a lot of stuff. They have a time management system as well. The processes and everything that I've dealt with them is extremely easy. We will look at them, but I've got a list on my desk of the 4 or 5 other vendors as
Okay,
well.
we use ADP.
Velocity,
Yeah.
Paycom, I mean, there's a lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So
And
we
there
just
will
have
be
to
an
take our time.
RFP process at
Yes.
some point too, but right now, just check on the government side.
So yeah, because the one thing that's unique with us is that we have our police department, law enforcement scheduling, 911 scheduling, and ambulance all scheduled through this.
Mm-hmm. Good aspect. Just curious. Because they have all those kind of shifts and stuff too, so that would be a
So, oh yeah,
good idea.
we will be, just, right now, we're just on research stuff. Any other questions?
That was 5 minutes exactly.
I'm sorry.
Who knows?
I'm sure somebody will donate their time, right?
She's
We
a
need to get you a clock with it here.
Oh, wait, I got it right here on my computer. Ready? How many minutes do we get?
So before Tara is next with city clerk and municipal court, but if you didn't notice, we do have snacks over there. So disrupt lightly if you want to go grab a snack. I don't think mayor's on call official break, but just eat talk, I guess.
No official breaks, so if we need
Well,
to,
we need to.
There don't need to be a break.
Yeah.
FYI.
It's up to him. I'll let him.
Doesn't be right now, but there has to be a
At
break.
6:30?
Sure.
Okay, let's see how many Tara, you're up.
Okay, I'm done.
She donated her time to me.
I did, that's it. Well, thanks to Ed. Ed took up my court part of it, so that's good. I'm done with court. Let's see. Where was I gonna go with this? City clerk's office. There's myself, and then I share half of Brenda. The other half goes to Carrie Bell. This last month, we processed 375 applications and licenses between contractors and business licenses. Overall for the year, we're at 558 new licenses that have been processed out of there. We just got our scanner for Brenda's desk, so we're gonna start scanning in all of the, some of our contracts and getting rid of some of the stuff in that packed up room that I got upstairs, because I'm running out of space, and pretty soon I'll put Carrie's stuff in his office, because he takes up a whole wall. Some of my struggles in city clerk right now, one of my biggest ones is dog licenses, which we're gonna solve that one soon. We buy these dog tags, people don't come and get them. If I've sold 5 so far this year and last year combined. So we're not selling many dog tags. I did have it up on our board. I'm gonna see about putting it on the website. We're gonna put it on the water bills. So we'll see what we get out of that, but then we'll have to think of some other way to, maybe have the vet do it, or I don't know yet. We're working on that.
So you have to license a pet?
A dog?
So
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. seriously.
unfortunately, and Kevin will appreciate this, this is an ordinance that has either lost its purpose, and I know Tara's ready to dump it, and I'm not holding her back, but I said, there was a reason why cities have this program. The police have to deal with animal control, and if there's a tool that our licensing can help bring animals back to their owners, or we have a lot of cities are going to their own tags and stuff that can be tracked. But I said, it's not just for the purpose of having a license, which is how it ended up. But I said that the police department have to identify what tools do they need to control the animal control. And if that is a piece of the tool, then we're gonna perfect it and manage it properly. If not, get rid of it. But I have left it to them two departments. It's like the purpose is to support what Todd's guys do. If it's not helping them, then get rid of it. But if there's something we're not doing effectively with the program, then perfect it so they have the tools. And that's what TAR says they're working on. That is really, they have to identify where they need help, because we have a little pin in the back. We hold them for so many days. We work with several shelters. It's just, we're connecting the owners with lost pets is our goal. How do we help with that?
Do you think about maybe renaming it from a dog license, where it sounds like you have to pay to be able to have your animal, kind of rebranding the program to advertise it more? There's like some of the Facebook Lost and Found pets and stuff as more of like you pay this fee and we keep your pet's information on file. If it's turned in, we can get it back.
That is the whole
versus because when you hear license, you think I have to pay to have an animal. But if you brand it more as, hey, if you pay us, we'll keep a little bit better record of what you have, and if we find your animal, we can get it back to you faster, if that would.
That's
You know,
what
help
the two
and-
departments are supposed to
Yeah,
work.
what I did in Colorado is I contacted all of the veterinarians around in the local area, and I had them sell the tag. So when they go and get their pet, because most of them get their chips or whatever, but they have their rabies tags also, they can sell the tag in addition and just get it there that way, and then we get the information back, so it is in the database for the police to do it that way, and maybe give, I think it's $3 and $6, we give $1 or $2 to them, or we take $1, whatever. It's not about the money at this point, because we're not making any anyway, but it's about making sure that we reunite the dogs with their thing. But we're not the only municipality that's not selling licenses and tags and all that either. No one else is either.
Just that
Yeah.
rebranding.
Right, so I'll definitely look into that, and I'll work with Todd.
Yeah, but Tara, if we're not, maybe that you could, if you're gonna go to these vets, you could get all these cities to do it, because the vet down in Lynn Creek, for example, they're gonna say, oh, well, we've got this program, oh, you're from Camden, oh, we don't deal with you. Well, you can tell we're from Camden, and okay, you're this one, or you're from Osage. So we get all the municipalities to tie into the vets, then.
I'll get with all my clerks around here and see, because
See if they
this
can all
definitely
do that.
something.
The downside with the chips is the vets are good about selling the chips, but people don't go in and enter the information in the computer. So
We get them
when
scanned and
when
then.
we scan it, it comes back empty. So
Right. Well, we can only do what we can do. We can,
So,
take our next step.
so is this with the dog license, it's just a record, right? That they do, it's not the actual chip or anything?
No,
That's
no. That's something
Okay.
that they, like the homeowners or the
Right,
homeowners.
okay.
The homeowners
You're
can
gonna
do
chip our
that,
house
right? Yeah.
in case it wanders
Lord.
off.
Yeah, no kidding.
Sorry.
It's been a day, let me tell you. So those are some of my struggles. I know Ed went over courts. Some of our struggles show me is Annie's been doing an amazing job, but like Carrie and I have issues with how the state divvies back the money to us, because now all the money goes to the state. You can't put the money in the computer up front. So Show Me's, we're definitely struggling with Show Me Court. I mean, not as far as the paperwork, it's just how we're getting the money in. Because you can't put any money into the computer. But if they have to go out and they have to use the computer outside, if they're using a credit card, we can't run it through Encode because now it has to go to Show Me, so we have to do a separate bank account. I mean,
What a pain.
it is a huge nightmare. So court is on my back burner, and I'm gonna tackle that after this other stuff goes away, but that'll be probably next year. So don't even worry about court. We got it covered for right now. Other than that, I'm out. Is that good?
The only thing I.
Oh, my metrics? Oh, yeah,
The
go
only
ahead.
thing I want to add on court, and if you notice, and Ed, we forever will call it SB5. I don't know what the official name is. Ever since then, because, court is a revenue line item, and in history past, the revenue has exceeded the expense of having your court. And I know what Tara's talking about, we're not gonna get the weeds of it tonight, but in the next 8 to 14 months, you can expect some presentation from us. They are more and more forcing the municipal courts into county court. I can make a financial argument for it, but I know there's other things. And again, Ed, I know we are on to your side sometimes on this, so I don't want to get in the weeds, but you can see the revenue decline in that revenue line item because of they're holding our hands and what we can charge. Well, that line item at some point, you as the board have to decide, is it worth having our own judge? Because now that revenue coming in is not covering the expenses of the court. We're gonna get to that point. We're gonna get to that point in 3 months? I don't know. Maybe budget will know more, but you're slowly seeing that trend, and just like Tara said, we were the last ones to finally get on Show Me Court, because you had to, we were one of the last municipalities. It's been crazy, and we're working, they have so, our words out in the lobby have to be a certain amount. Court money cannot touch anything with inside. We've had to buy more equipment, we've had to expand, and you're slowly gonna close that gap. So I'm not gonna say anything more on court either, because I'm using more of Tara's time than she wanted, but there will be some decision-making that I expect the board to accept in the next year, because we're gonna get to that point. So we are close now.
So my service level indicators and performance measures, everything is increasing in the clerk's office, it seems. I mean, I can't even keep up with the contractors' licenses that keep coming in. Poor Pam and them, they send me more contractors' licenses, but we're getting them processed and done. Records requests completed and archived, those seem to be hit or miss every now and then. We're trying to, if somebody comes in and they want a records request and it doesn't take long, I just shoot it out and get it done and over with. It doesn't stay. Some of them are a little more, lengthy and trying to get done. But other than that, clerk's office is running well. I don't see any huge issues other than busy. And TIF stuff. That's gonna drive me crazy. That's it. All done. Any questions? Yes, Richard.
So just two. One, could we get the dog license recommendation by budget time whenever you and or copy?
Yes, you will.
Okay. And then there was, on one of your SLAs, was city code updates, and I don't know if you guys used an average versus just you had some targeted code updates that you expected to do, and I wondered how we're tracking against that.
City code updates? Those are done by your ordinances that you pass and that they send out and get done. So
Okay.
whichever ordinance, like your building
So it's
code.
an estimate over a bit.
Correct. Yeah, it all depends. Yep.
All right, thanks. That's all I have.
I have one question.
Yep.
As far as records requests, you're talking sunshine law requests?
Mhm.
And are those immediate, or is there?
It depends. The rule, there's the 72 hours, but if they want to, I don't know, look at something, or I can't even think of a super simple one that we did. Maybe a copy of the TIF plan. Okay, that would be considered a records request. I can shoot them an email and be done with it, not with it at any given time. Some of the other ones are more complicated. They want building plans, they want zoning requirements, they want
Every permit issued at this
anything.
address.
Right, and so we have to go back. And
Okay.
the longest part of it is one, once I get it, I shoot it out to management. Does anybody have anything on this? Well, not all management's gonna respond to me within a couple of hours and tell me they're gonna find it. So that's where the 72 hours comes in. I shoot them an email and say, look, I got your request, it's out to management, blah, blah. I should have everything within 3 days, but I will email you if I don't and give you a reason why we don't have to. So it's been a huge court case, with Missouri State. The state got in trouble because they redacted, and anyways, that whole mess. So we have to be very detailed on what we give them and why we can't give it to them in a certain amount of time and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Carrie Bill.
Okay, mine should be the shortest. Okay, to kind of go back to where we were a year ago, I was back and looked at, we reviewed,
We pause for a minute.
yes.
When the different department heads are giving a presentation, can you alert us if you've got a handout or a flyer? Because
Yeah. I didn't have any.
you didn't have, so
I don't have
that's where all our shelves and papers
No,
are.
I'm sorry.
When I get to the point, I will bring it up.
And that was just for everybody in general, because we're shuffling through these papers. going,
I'm
wait,
sorry,
where's
I
this
didn't
stuff?
hand anything out.
Or when Ed talked, we're all shuffling through these packets going, okay, where's this document? Thank you, Gary.
Okay, I'm right now looking at what I presented last year. And we were all celebrating the fact that Bruins Point was nearing, they hadn't quite finally paid, but we were anticipating it, and that paid off later last year. I do have some good news about debt payoff again. Our largest part of our SRF debt, which was dated in 2002 and represents the largest portion of our monthly payments, that last payment transfer for that portion will be in June. So I know it's already reflected in your budget, so it's not like I'm, finding new or lowering the expense, but I just wanted to make you aware that, our monthly transfer will go from like 240,000 a month down to just under 100,000 a month. It'll cover our last three. We still have a 2003, a 2005, and a 2007. But we're kind of, in the downhill slide on the city's debt, and just wanted to point that out. My department from last year to this year was reduced by half of a person. Me and HR, Cindy are sharing, Abby Mulder. I think Abby has not, it seems like everybody's really busy, but not to the point where I think we're all holding up and doing really well, with that change. On my metrics that were in the budget, overall, some things fluctuate a little bit in accounting and numbers. It's a little, just because I have more or less journal entries is not, a big reflection of our volume. I did notice the one that I thought did tell a little bit of a story was the utility bills issued had gone up, and I do think that's a reflection of the expansion of our system and the busyness of the building department. So a lot of what I do is a reflection of the other departments. In the 1099 area, they have had some changes. If we have a vendor that we're strictly buying product and zero labor, we don't have to do as many of those volume-wise, so that number went down a little bit. Then I threw in my highlight back to kind of a little bit of a follow-up and a little more information. I did do this little quickie highlight for the water meters. I just wanted to add a few more, a little bit more information that is available on the utility billing side, and is just looking at it from a different angle than maybe Public Works and Kevin would look at exactly the same information. I know that he has. Well, I'll go ahead and hit kind of, like I said, through Encode, we could print out kind of the history of water meters and how this gets in. Every time the city pays for a invoice that includes water meters, we take those numbers and put them into Encode. So we always know how many water meters we purchased, even if they're not attached to an account. So they will sit in inventory until we get information from Public Works as to attach them to which account. So as of just last week, all the meters in the city systems was at the 2826. And backing out, we still have, because of the purchases that were made this year, we're still sitting on 215 meters in inventory that are available to deal with broken meters and issues that come up. And that number in the past has been very small to not being able to keep up with all the operatings. I think that looks pretty good going into summer. I purposely broke out, Encode groups these into 3 years at a time. I purposely went back and broke out year 1, 2, and 3 so that you could see basically how many meters were purchased. And because we were keeping very little on the shelf. So what you see there, the 400, the 384, those were purchased and put right back into the system for the last 3 years. And costs, I threw in a box on costs just so you can kind of see the trends and why that line item is going to trend going up, and probably at the way you see your construction costs and everything else. I'll probably follow about the same trend. Total, and then the snapshot on meter reading issues. I think we're trending in the right direction on that. The availability of new meters on the shelf, and getting switched out, then kind of lowers your labor. And if you look at April last year at 4.5 days to read versus where we're at this year at 1.5, that's going in the right direction. Obviously, there's seasonal issues. I know when there's leaves on the ground in the fall, sometimes it messes with the radio read. Maybe not as bad this year, Kevin, because we do have new radio read that's hopefully more sensitive. And then just to kind of top that whole conversation, I did bring an email that the utility billing clerk had sent to myself, Kevin, and Zach, because we do, like I said, we don't just dump this information in the meter, in the computer and forget about it. Keegan, the utility billing clerk, actually goes to Public Works about twice a year and does a physical inventory. And whether a meter is sitting on a truck somewhere or sitting on the shelf, we account for everything the city has purchased. And last week when they did this, Keegan said that the most recent meter inventory audit, exactly the 215 were in inventory and 162 installed, and not a single meter was unaccounted for. That has not been true in the past. I mean, we would finally find them, but it wasn't without a lot of back and forth and extra work along the way. So thanks to Zach for keeping that, making that very easy on my department this last round. So unless somebody has questions for me, that's.
I have a little one. So at board, you had mentioned that you guys are finding some of the older older meters, especially at some of the commercial locations, weren't reading right, and their amounts were having to be estimated.
Yes.
Have we been, those ones that have been replaced, have we been seeing where the estimates kind of close, or were we underestimating and now that it's gonna go, their bills are gonna go up and everything, or I'm just curious?
We are still early in the year. Honestly, I don't have, I can find out how, what, because there were some meters that were estimated for over a period of time. I would have to look into that. I don't know off the top of my head.
I was just curious if their bills are gonna go way up or if it was pretty close to estimating.
I can look into that and see. It's gonna be more obvious as we get into the heat of the season, but I'll follow that.
Gary, I think Richard has it.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to understand what all this says, but the change outs under monthly snapshot, does that mean year to date, we have changed out 190 meters? Is that what that means? 190 meters have been changed out?
No, just in the month of April, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, just in the month of April, we changed out 123.
So we've changed out 190 so far this year.
Yes, adding those, yes.
Sorry.
Are they totalized? No, because this is, going across, it's 45, like we did 38 last week. And that's, next month is gonna be huge, but that's May. But I mean, these are.
And all those change outs are because
failures.
I'm sorry?
Because of failures, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does read days mean?
The days it takes to go and actually physically take the reads.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good job, Carrie.
Good job.
Thank you.
Public Works, thanks.
Okay, one more. Gary Patterson, one more.
Okay, so planning department, I didn't do any handouts. I figure I'd throw enough paper at you all the rest of the year. Anyway, the planning department consists of myself and half of Pam, hopefully the better half, but Ron probably gets that. I just want to give you a snapshot basically of what we have done in the last year since we had this meeting, okay? First, our performance metrics are based completely on getting information to the Planning Commission, the Board of Aldermen, and the Board of Zoning Adjustment. We get those out a minimum of 7 days prior to the meeting that the information is used for. Typically, it'll actually even be the Monday before. We email those out, and then we also send hard copies so they can have those to bring the same day. And we stick to that number 100% of the time. The other thing would be passing forward and moving forward the building permit applications that come in, and I know Ron is going to address those. But within my department, we try to do it within 24 hours as long as we have everything that we need within the application. Okay. Just some quick numbers of what we've done in the last year, and you all see all of these except for the variance cases. So since last May, we've done 7 rezonings, 2 special use permits, 3 major subdivisions, and we've done 6 variance cases. But on the variance cases, none of them so far in 2022, which is actually a good thing. You don't want your number of variances to be up, and that is a good thing. And as part of those, and I'll share some numbers in a minute that I kind of want to use to wrap all this up. But as part of those, the Board of Aldermen has approved enough rezoning to residential for what could be a maximum of 540 total units on properties. And we have permitted over this last year 75,000 square feet of retail floor space that is either recently open or is scheduled to open in the near future. And this is why that is important. I just want to share some information with you as it pertains to what my goal is as a planner. And I've always told you all, and I know that you've heard me say this before, my goal is and always will be to do everything that I can do to help the city of Osage Beach become a complete community. Okay, that end means a place where you can have a business, a place where your workers can live in the city, and be a self-reliant community. And here's kind of what I want to show you as it pertains to what I mean. I'm going to go back a few years to 2005. And these are census type data, so it won't be exact, but it will be very close. The city of Osage Beach had 6,724 jobs in 2005. 5,933 of those people who filled those jobs came from outside of our community. Okay, only 791 people actually lived in the community and worked in our community. Okay, so I guess my point is when I start talking about a complete community, what I'm saying is that the number of 6,724, you want to continue to grow, but you want the number of people who come in from outside the community to become less, and the number of people who are working within the community to continuously be more. And what that does, one, that provides you so many opportunities to continue to grow your business because they know that their people will come from inside. And then those people being inside of your community, they're also going to go out and they're going to buy their stuff in your community. So in 2005, you had 5,933 people that were leaving town and probably going to their Walmart or wherever in their community to buy their groceries and buy their things, as opposed to doing that within our own community. Okay. Moving up to 2010, and these numbers are quite a bit less. We had 6,235 jobs, which is down about 500 jobs for the city of Osage Beach. Well, 2010 was right in the middle of the recession. Okay, so you can always follow those trends of why. At that time, 5,648 of those workers came from outside. 587 of them were inside. So we lost 200 workers inside. Okay. And then, of course, at that point, we had 871 people living in Osage Beach that went somewhere else to work. Now, this one is the best example that I have. So in 2019, and this is the most recent data that we have, which is before COVID. So I'll be very interested to see what the COVID numbers look like over 2020, 2021, 2022. But in 2019, we had a total of 6,510 jobs. So not quite back up to where we were in 2005, but we're growing. We're getting jobs back as of 2019. 5,921 of those people came from outside to work in our community. 589 were inside the community and worked within the community. So we only raised in 5 years census data wise, 2 jobs inside the city, okay? And the reason I bring these to you is to help you understand that the work that you have done over the last year, providing those opportunities for those homes and for those units, regardless of type, whether they're condos, which the majority of the 540 are going to be condos, and that doesn't even include Topsider, or what they're going to do on Hamptons on Jeffries Road. Functionally, what that includes is the piece of property that used to be Mike's Resort down next to Parkview Bay. And it also includes the one that we just recently did at Harper's Cove. But the function of 540 new residential units, say hopefully if they all work out within the next 6 to 8 years, that's that many more people that we can have that can go towards our complete community, that can work inside our community, that can then buy products within inside the community, then which can help with, Phyllis's favorite thing, and maybe bringing a grocery store to the west side of the bridge, because when those people are looking, they're saying, we're a little bit short on the number of dwellings in our draw area, so we're not quite ready yet. But if you put this many more in their draw area, maybe that grocery facility decides now's the time for us to go, and we'll end up with something over here on the west side. And these are the basics of the things that we look at when it comes to how do we continue to grow our community in the best ways possible. Who are we trying to serve? And ultimately with the ideology of we're trying to serve the city of Osage Beach, its citizens and its business owners, we can't help but to need to continue growing our residential stock and our inventory of homes so that we can provide for these people who want to come in and build businesses and, develop those businesses within our community and be able to tell them where their workers are going to come from. And that includes our own. So with those numbers being, what they are, and like I said, I really look forward to seeing what they are, for the COVID years, to see if that has skewed them at all. I imagine, especially in 2020 itself, it probably really did, but I would say we're probably, moving back to a norm as of right now. But anticipating, construction and those things to continue, which is always a struggle. The worrisome planner in me starts looking at capital costs for construction and gas prices and inflation and those things, and, sees the opportunity for things to slow down a little bit, which is not a good thing. But if we keep moving forward, I think that, the decisions that are being made today definitely will benefit this community in the future. And that's what we try to do within the planning department, and in the, professional guidance that we try to give, the planning commission and the board of aldermen as a whole. And that's what I have. Everybody really needs to go to the bathroom. That's gotta be what it
I
is.
was waiting for questions. We need a motion to take an official break. How about 10 minutes, folks? Sure. Alright. Ready to move on?
Move on.
Ron White, building official. I've got the building inspection department and the building maintenance. I do have a handout in front of it, says building inspection department. There's some of the information here, the successes for the building inspection department. I'm gonna just skip over the first two. This is included in this packet. And for those of you, I don't know if everybody looks at that during Gina's city administrator report or not, but those are included in there. Valuation right now, we're looking at about half of where we were at this time last year, but in this community, it takes one good project to completely knock that out of the water. So not real concerned right now. We're still looking good anyway. We have a substantial amount of permits. We just don't have the next topsider building yet. We don't have the big money projects to push that over the edge. As far as a big success is the Encode software migration that we'll have. The information is attached towards the back from Tyler Technologies. That migration of software is going to allow us to accept the plans electronically. We're going to be able to store them electronically. We're going to be able to do all kinds of things out in the field that we haven't been able to do before, taking pictures, adding to the file while we're still out in the field versus taking the pictures, sending them to my email. I download them, print them off. Anyway, this will be a big step towards electronic, as electronic as this guy has ever been. So with Michael's help, that will be a success. So we will purchase the budgeted monitors once we've had a chance to view the product and access or assess the specific needs. I should put my glasses on so I can read. Don't want to jump the gun, get something that's not going to be the best for me as far as being able to view the prints and such. This will also help us to archive the old prints, be able to scan them in, and it's going to get us that connection. Another success is our inspector training. That's something that's ongoing. I've got a couple of new guys, and they are, we've got code classes scheduled for this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I made it one of my goals on our review that I go out with the guys myself and make sure that I think I've set the goal at 10 with each per year, whether that be a final inspection or rough in, to make sure that we are consistent and on the same page with what my expectations are as a building official and what I expect to see out in the field. Sometimes that's a matter of when it just works out for our time schedule, but so far I'd say I've been on 4 or 5 with each of them already, so hitting that mark's not going to be that tough. I'm going to go well over that. To touch on we brought this up previously, and I was to report back to you guys before July on the uniform adoption of the updated building codes. I did discuss that during the actual March and April code officials meetings, and currently Mid-County, City of Lake Ozark, and Lake Ozark Fire Protection District are not under the 2018 standards. However, Lake Ozark and Lake Ozark Fire Protection District do intend to adopt the codes July 1st with enforcement in November. Mid-County has had extreme increase in inspection requests, and they're very busy. We actually I spoke with Fire Marshal Leanne and said that it might be in your best interest to just wait because everybody agreed that they were on board with adopting the 2024 codes in either 25 or 26. So I said, for you to struggle and maybe get it adopted in 23, and then we all turn around in 2 years and update again, you're going to be chasing your tail. So I suspect, right, I firmly believe that in 25 or 26, whenever we all decide to pull that trigger, the entire lake area will once again be under the same edition of the international codes. Some challenges in the building department, something that we took on a little more than we had in the past because of labor shortages or because of COVID, was the phased approvals for footing and foundation only permits. That has bit us a couple of times. When you give somebody a footing and foundation only permit because they don't have all the other plans ready, the architect doesn't have theirs ready, the engineer doesn't have the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, but they have the footing and foundation. Well, they'd like to move forward because the weather's nice, so we allow them to do that. Unfortunately, that will sometimes cause a little bit of a hiccup. Once they get the footing foundation, maybe they provide us the underslab plumbing, the slab prints. It's hard to stop guys once they get to that point. And sometimes people forget that they have a footing and foundation only permit. So this is something that we need to improve on, not only to protect, it's not really protecting us, but protecting us from wasting time trying to chase people and get them to
do things the correct way, but also helping keep them in line, so they're not getting ahead of themselves, or putting something in that hasn't been approved. Our new migration will assist with this, because it'll have timelines, like if we do a footing and foundation only permit, I can put 30 days on there. In 30 days, it'll send a notice over, hey, these people, it's only footing and foundation, make sure that it is only temporary, and they're not going beyond. So that, we do that now with Outlook, but honestly, we get so many inspections, or so many permit applications, it's real easy to set it aside or put it on the back burner, but that new migration will assist us with that as well. Other challenges, some other things that were brought up in the past were public engagement. Me reaching out, making myself available to the public, providing additional information for clarification and code requirements and what the ordinance regulations mean. So far, ICC, we are a member of the International Code Council. They have an advocacy department. Reached out to them. I missed the Building Safety Month this year. Their standards, their Building Safety Month, their focus this year was more like energy conservation, preventing fire, brush fires, land fires, dry season stuff. So it wasn't gonna really fit our community anyway, so I'm not overly upset, but they do have the pamphlets and the stuff to get out to people. I would like to participate next year and do the proclamation for declaring it May's Building Safety Month and going through the different programs, so that each week is a separate topic. Also, any public forums we have, I want to get out there. Speaking engagements, I've spoke to Rotary in the past, I've been to B&I in the past, and our code officials meetings, we are inviting, like whenever we have a big topic, electrical. You know, right now, there's obviously the big pushes for safe dock electrical. We invite electricians to those, so that we can engage with them back and forth. What are your concerns? What are your challenges? What can we do to help you? And so forth. So we're going to try to work, or not, we are trying to work more with the community and with the contractors in that way. The other idea was the direct connection. We do submit articles to Jan, to get out there to the community. We used to do something in Warrensburg that was called the Notes from the Building Official, just certain topics, like this week we had a topic come up, and by this week I mean today, about fences and how the building code does not require a permit for a fence, but there are regulations in the zoning code that say it can't be in the front yard if it's a solid fence. So getting that type of information out in these newsletters to make sure that these quirky little things are understood, you know, try to take advantage of that. So that is it for the building. Oh, no, it's not. Vehicle update. Our new vehicle for this year is not scheduled for build yet, so we're still looking maybe November, December. We'll see. Compliance cases, obviously the grass is growing, folks are coming down for the summer, and we are getting a few more calls. So I expect that to ramp up here real quick. It always does. Anything on building inspections? Sir.
Real quick, what's B&I?
Business network.
International.
So it's local.
Look, it's a local group, yeah, so they all support each other with references. And,
They meet once a week, don't they?
Well, there are several different, there are several different BNI groups.
Yeah.
But basically, each BNI group is a group of a single individual who represent a bank, retail outlets, an attorney, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's 7 of them total BNI groups here in Osage Beach.
Okay. And then does that mean that Osage Beach Fire Protection District is on 18?
yes.
Okay. So I got thanks.
Building maintenance. Successes, we have flowers, that's a big one. We have updated or replaced water dispensers, City Hall and Public Works. We're using Lindy Springs. They are, I don't want to discredit anybody we've used in the past, but Lindy Springs has done a great job. They're very responsive, very responsible. When they come out, they clean the equipment, they check filters. I mean, anyway, they've been real good to work with. It's nice to have a local that we know taking care of that. We did install another water dispenser. This is the bottle type water dispenser. We put that in the communication center because of the large staff that they had, as you've seen, the 4 people. And when they have one person on duty, they really can't leave the room. So we gave them fresh water. Replaced the refrigerator in the ambulance day room that was budgeted. The old one kept having maintenance issues, leaking all over. Sallyport camera upgrade, that was to give there was a blank spot on the old camera where when they would come up to the door for booking, you couldn't see the officer. So this new camera gave you that full angle down, so if anything were to occur, dispatch would be able to see it. We've got 2 of the 6 budgeted heat pumps ordered. There is a lag time on those, but we're gonna get started on getting those replaced. Bathroom upgrades, the wallpaper removal and repaint, bid specifications have been written. I sent them on to Mike, and we are looking at fourth quarter for that project, so we can get through the summer and not have the challenge of taking down one of the public restrooms. So we're gonna have to do it on the weekend or night. Outdoor trash cans, those are 2 of them are back ordered. Thanks to Public Works, Kevin and Transportation Department, they're working on replacing all of the remainder of the city hall parking lot lights with LED lights, so that's going to lead, it's done.
Done.
You don't even know, they're like the shadow. Thank you very much. We will see some savings on that. HVAC cooling tower is de-winterized and ready for summer heat. Let me know, obviously, those of you who work at City Hall, let me know if you have any issues, because we have to get on those quick if we want air conditioning. Yeah, everything's out, back ordered. Challenges for the building maintenance department, preparing specifications for bidding. I've already talked to Mike and to Mr. Van Leer, and he's all on board to help out with any of the specifications for bidding. I used to have some engineering interns that would do that for us. And although I can do it, I am not near as efficient. So to have them on board to help out with throwing together some specifications is great. Time availability and opportunities to train the inspectors, as I'm sure you know, our department is also in charge of the maintenance on this building. And I not only need to train them on building inspections, but the many facets of building maintenance as well. And that leads me into the next one, which right now, I'm the guy that gets called on the weekends or after hours if there's any maintenance issues. And maintenance issues are usually air conditioners down, there's a leak, there's power outage in an area, you never know what it might be. So getting those guys up to speed so that I can hand that off on the weekend. Right now, it actually works out just fine because I'm about 3 minutes away. But there are weekends that I would like to say that I'm not gonna worry about. City Hall carpet replacement, that's something that I'll be bringing to you during the budget hearings. We've got areas upstairs, my best guess is the stuff we track in the winter. We have tried to do the stain removal and tried to shampoo the carpets. We've had them all shampooed a couple of times from an outside contractor. We do it ourselves now, but the carpet's showing its age. It was replaced shortly after I started here, so it's been a few years. Another project that we'll be looking at for next year is a new retaining wall and plantings around the City Hall, the billboard sign out in the corner of the property. We have trapped 2 groundhogs, but they have quite a tunnel system underneath that sign. I'm a little worried about what we might find, but we're gonna do our best to fill that stuff in. And hopefully those are the only 2 that were there this spring. Other than that, the final items, fitness center, which Cindy already touched on. I am talking faster, I get some Michael to talk. We are working on equipment updates. Betterment Committee is doing everything we can to appease the employees and get the fitness equipment that they deserve. If there's any questions?
Kind of off topic, but it goes back to the building maintenance. Maybe this is something for an agenda we need for the next board meeting. About a month ago, VA, or Elks Lodge approached us about doing a VA memorial in the roundabout. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that would not be a smart place for that, because if they wanted to put a plaque, it's not necessarily the roundabout's publicly accessible area.
Sorry, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I think they changed their mind.
Yeah, they call me, the Elks Lodge themselves, they're having some internal questions whether all the money they spent, they should keep it on their property.
Okay.
So we're gonna do nothing until they approach us.
Thank you for that update. We can cancel the meeting. We have to say.
Well, back to building maintenance, I was gonna ask your opinion, because I thought if they're gonna put a plaque in the sign and a roundabout, you shouldn't be able to access that, to a traffic area.
That explains the message I got that I hadn't returned yet earlier today from Ron. So I'll call him back tomorrow.
Solve that problem.
There you go.
Any other questions the mayor can answer?
I do have a question, probably not the right place. Where's Topside right now for their occupancy?
They were requesting them last week. They have asphalt approach and parking. And the fire district is going to allow temporary certificates of occupancy without the striping. The striping should be completed Wednesday, weather permitting. But yeah, they will have the parking lot and all approach done. They'll still have the construction entrance. It's gonna be gravel.
So they'll be able to close on some of them then?
This week should, yeah, it looks like I'm just passing by at lunch today. It looked like they were getting quite a bit of it done, so. Yeah.
Starting to look like it.
And they're all code approved?
They're all, pardon?
They're all code approved and everything's up to par?
We did have,
No issues.
the fire district, the fire marshal, fire inspector, my inspectors were out there, and we did make sure that, there were certain stipulations, you gotta have the entire building, live on the fire suppression, on the alarm system. So yeah, they're in good shape. They're not going for the whole building, obviously, but a floor at a time. So
Okay.
you have to be completely done all life safety issues for that floor.
One question, I'm sorry. Do we track COs, especially for residential?
You track.
In other words, it's one thing to have building permits. It's another thing to do a CO where we know there's a home that's actually livable or a residential space, especially with condos.
Yes, we do for residential. The US Census, used to be the Dodge report. We provide that information monthly to the federal government via, I can get you those reports up to date. I just looked at them today. It'll tell you how many residential units. Now, if it's a condo, it's gonna be, or if there's 40 condos, and there's 40 residential units. So
And that's fine. The reason, I mean, Kerry kind of touched on it, to go back to the housing study that Lordex was producing, it says we need 5,000 whatever in 4 counties, houses, but, at the end of the day, permits are great, but COs are what actually changes that number from a need standpoint. And so if there's ways that we can get that information.
I'll have
So
to make
let's
sure it's
loop
COs, it
into
might be
some
permits.
updates.
Yeah, it might be permits issued. We do track that.
Thought, sir, that information would be very helpful.
We'll do.
My queen.
My turn. Unfortunately, Cindy used some of my time, so I'll be quick. Thank you, Cindy.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Everybody.
I appreciate that. Go over a couple performance measures so far to date. 191 tickets through /, around a 98% close so far. Total of 80 servers supported, continuously trying to get that number down. Peripherals, printers, scanners, Wi-Fi devices, 130, PC workstations, around 100. Email, 115 licensed. Enterprise application changes all the time as we add, but around 130, 140, and currently around 20 terabytes of storage. Some of the positives so far this year, implementation of our Barracuda email security to help us from slipping up and falling victim to cybersecurity that generally happens through email. Purchased an installation of the new utility billing printer. The last one lasted us about 15 years, so thank you to the board for allowing us to purchase that. I know the ladies upstairs are happy. In the process of moving the Encode in the cloud, this past week I've been working with April and I'm setting up the Encode online. April give it the run through, so we currently have 9 employees that are running through the test phase. Speaking on ExecuTime that everybody's so fond of, we put 3 brand new ExecuTime time clocks in because the other ones had imploded, literally blew up where they were on the wall, split in half, and luckily, nobody got hurt or anything, but the batteries inside of them start out, super paper thin, and after a couple years, for whatever reason, the whole thing split in half. It's, they're in my office right now, but they swelled up and basically, like I said, imploded. As you guys are aware, we finally finished the boardroom AV upgrade. I think that was a huge success, so thank you again for that. To kind of piggyback on what Ron was saying, it's not on here with the electronic filing. Mike and I upgraded all the new iPhones across the city, got the mayor his new one, purchased some new iPads for the Public Works Department, which will integrate the SCADA upgrade, which I'll speak about below. Some of the struggles, just like everybody else, purchasing prices seem to be all over the place. Just normal maintenance and support. I had a line item that was budgeted, come back, and it was about 58% over what they quoted me last year. Luckily, I was able to work with Dell, and they ended up honoring what they had quoted me. But That being said, just the price of equipment and getting good, reliable people out to help us, it seems to be a challenge. Also keeping up with some of the insurance requirements. Cindy really didn't hit on it much.
So you already had it in here.
But we basically just making sure from a security standpoint for insurance wise that we have all their standards in place, which is the main thing is two-factor authentication. We're in the process of getting price quotes and trying to see how that will affect us moving forward. My last struggle was obviously just being a one-person shop. Sometimes it's difficult or it never fails. If Mike calls me into his office, Gina's gonna call my desk and she thinks, no, it's just tough because I try to balance it, but as I stress at every manager's meeting, the use of / really helps me out. If they're not able to fix any issues, then they'll relay it on to me, and it's just a good tracking tool. Some of the upcoming projects at the next board meeting, I'll seeking approval, purchase, and the installation of 2 new hypervisors and a core switch, which is basically all the meat and potatoes of everything that the city does. It's kind of the last integrated piece of standing down our VDI, which you guys approved a couple of years back. So that's going to be a huge leap forward. Also has increased storage, which helps us with the electronic filing and all that utilization. Again, I already touched on the two-factor authentication. Cindy and Mike and I are kind of going over that, just trying to see how that falls. Let Kevin kind of speak more on SCADA, but last I heard we got approval and we're still working with people out of ECC doing their part, and then they'll reach back to me and we'll get everything working together, but give our Public Works the ability to remote in from home and see the SCADA system as opposed to every time they get a random call out, have to report back to the shop. And so it'll give them a lot more freedom on that side. Another big project Chief and I are currently working on, we actually have the back end of the body cam stood up. We recently received the rest of the body cams. We have a gentleman by the name of Rashad coming down for the training for all of PE staff. But here in the next couple of months, we'll have 100% body cams for all police officers. The last one is should probably be placed in the struggles, so I apologize, it's out of whack. Full redundancy just means a backup system for internet. What we've realized over the last 8 weeks now is we're having issues with AT&T, our primary internet provider. The way it's supposed to work is if we have any issues with AT&T, about a minute later, Charter stands up and we just hit the ground running. But we're having some issues, which 911 is obviously impacted. So working with Chief and Lieutenant O'Day, actually this Saturday, we've got about a 4-hour window set aside where we're going to dig into that and make sure that we have full redundancy for 911 City Hall. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach there. But
kind of go off of that, what's happening is when we lose Charter Connect, our radios will come back up in about a minute. But our phone system, and 911 system, and our CAD system, it's about 20 minutes.
Right.
So we're without admin lines for 20 minutes.
So like to piggyback on that, most when it's set up and the configuration is working as it should, a minute or two later, our Charter picks up, but there's somewhere in our firewall that's not relaying it over to Charter. But in order to get in there and actually figure out what's going on, we have to bring the city down. So it's trying to figure out what works best for 911. When isn't the most traffic or the most calls, because we want to have the least impact on them as possible. So we've kind of held our breath for 7 or 8 weeks, and this Saturday we have a maintenance window set early morning. Fingers crossed it's quiet then, and we can figure out what's going on internally with the not switching over to Charter. And then also we have a critical ticket in with AT&T to figure out why we're losing our internet, our ISP, as consistently as we are, which seems like, I think for 9 weeks in a row, I've been called every single weekend for outages, which, in turn means 911 is going down for that 15, 20 minutes. So that's the critical thing I have on my plate right now, but that's all I have. Any questions?
Sir, I'm not sure if this is directed at you or to Gina. You are a one-man shop.
That is correct.
What is the backup plan should he be out on an unexpected absence for 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks?
Well, we do have an outside service that we contract with that was part of the deal when the department kind of changed. We contract with,
Forward slash.
I just was like, didn't sound right when the first part of my head, forward slash. But also, Mike, you know, to back up to a backup, but forward slash is an IT consultant company that is our beck and call 24/7.
And to piggyback that, they are my fill-in, or I mean, and that's why I always stress to everybody, I hate feeling like I'm pushing people off on them, but the more they utilize forward slash, you know, the less reliability they have on me 24 hours a day, and then I can take a vacation and not have to worry about. So that's why you continuously hear me telling everybody, have you reached out to forward slash? Do you have a ticket?
And that's gonna, you know, when we had full IT staff at one time and then slowly transitioned where we had a hybrid of an outside employees, we're used to just calling down the IT department. So it's been a transition to get used to, oh, that help desk, like I had to make Michael put sticky notes so I remember, oh, here's the help desk. You know, so it has been a transition, but.
And we're getting much better, but it's so easy. If you see me walking through the hallway to go help, hey, Michael, I gotta, sometimes, you know, just getting used to putting in that ticket.
Have you called in your ticket?
Absolutely. Give me a ticket now.
And the forward slash is good for like our desktops and stuff, but when it comes to our in-car systems, it's.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like there's some things that from a tracking standpoint, put in a forward slash so we can fall back and provide you guys numbers. What are we seeing on the PD side? What are we seeing on the ambulance side? But there are things that strictly I have to handle because forward slash is in St. Louis and I'm here. So.
To piggyback on that, this is a request for you, Deanna. Can you give all the board members a hierarchy of who backs up who in which department? And how he carries out who's his backup? Michael's out, who do we go to with questions or concerns?
I've delegated, working on something for the mayor to get him used to this. So I may just add something to that, so it'll serve two purposes. If you take an extra day, I can figure.
Yeah, it would just, well, number one, it make me feel a little more comfortable about some of these departments that only have one individual. And then once again, should they be gone, then we would know who to direct questions, concerns to, et cetera, or direct people to.
We just call Ron.
One other thing I do want to piggyback on IT is we also recently turned over our MyTel phone support to forward slash as well. Previously, I was handling that and they have been given administrative access to the back end of our phone system that allows our employees to call if they forgot their password or if they want to change some setting from behind the scenes. They can now call forward slash and have that all handled right when they make that phone call rather than sending me an email and then me finding time to do it at a later date. So that's another positive as we continue to lean a little heavier on forward slash.
So the question about the percent of tickets closed currently over 98%, does that mean the 98% are closed out or 98% were closed out within our policy parameters?
98% were currently closed at the time that they provided that report.
Okay, and so in the budget, you talked about policy parameters. So do you have any, not that you need to have it right this moment, do you track what percent were closed within policy parameters versus just closed?
We do track that. I don't have it currently, but I could get you those numbers on how.
That'd be great.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, thanks.
Hey, hi. You're up.
There might be a little handout in there involved.
That's for everybody's benefit. Stop picking on me, everybody.
Just a snapshot of what's been going on January through April on my activity out there, board. It's a crapshoot on what all this information means, basically. I mean, it's the price of gas, of course, is up. You know, everything's. This is the first time we've been over $5 a gallon since I think 2006. But if you'll see at least fine, we're down 7% on our takeoffs and landings, but my jet fuel sales are up 58% compared to last year. Why? I don't know.
Some of whose price?
Well, the price of jet fuel's gone up too.
But are you cheaper here?
When you say it's up 58%, is that 58% in money or 58% in gallons? Gallons, that's what I want to know. And these are all compared to last year. So you know, and that's another thing, comparing these numbers to last year is difficult too, because last year, we sold the most fuel we've ever sold last year, so. You know, and here are, takeoffs and landings at Grand Blaze are up 9%, but yet we're down. The jet fuel sales are down there. I had one hangar customer that bought a lot of jet fuel that sold his aircraft, so I'm missing that account right now. And plus I have another helicopter that buys a lot of jet fuel, and since the weather goes so bad this spring, he had to perform those. So I expect these numbers they're gonna level out. We're gonna have just as good a year as we did last year. It's just gonna take a while for it to catch up because our busy seasons are July, August, and September. Starting off in June as well too, so as long as the weather holds out. Any successes? The airport doesn't have any successes so far this year.
You haven't had a plane crash, right?
Are you fully staffed? Are you fully staffed?
We are fully staffed.
Yay, see that overrode my comment.
I still have one guy that I'm training, but we are fully staffed since we've been the main short since July, so that's gonna help getting into the busy season. I've got down some of my equipment needs. We bought a new zero-turn mower for Lacey Finance last year. I'm hoping to put one in the budget next year for Grand Blaze. I've got the plow truck down, but I mislabeled it. It's really Lacey Finance plow truck. You guys know about the problems we're having with vehicles. We're currently going to work with Mike and try to maybe find a used vehicle for sale to see if we can get that replaced. I've got big news on the fuel storage tank that we talked about in the budget when I was trying to get the trailer to haul back and forth. Finally got I only had 2 companies that came back to me for a bid to get a storage tank. And I finally got the other bid at 6:30 this morning. So your next board meeting that I can get an agenda item on there, I'll be coming to you. You guys were graceful enough to put $40,000 in the budget, and I've got a low bid of under $26,000 for a 2,000-gallon storage tank. So we can scrap the trailer idea and everything and just have our distributor drop off 2,000 gallons at Green Blaze. So that's going to be a big bonus. So see that in the next month or so on the agenda item. Projects, the Apron project naturally just resumed again last Friday. They were doing line stabilization today. Hopefully if the weather holds out, I mean, we're obviously not going to have that apron completed by Memorial Weekend, but they'll have it soon. I should say that soon after Memorial Weekend. They'll get that finished. We've got a localizer that they're going to recable. It's our approach system out at Lacey Fine. We've got all the materials in for that, surprisingly. Now we're waiting for the actual contractor to get us fit into his schedule to have that project finished. And then also the power line burial that we're going to do at Grand Blaze. We're going to start doing the engineering for that. I've got a lot of pilots that are excited about that safety feature to have that power line buried next year, hopefully. Another little success was a crew car. The courtesy car that we have out of Lacey Fine has been a huge bonus. We've been very particular about who we let use it and when and for how long, but it's been a great asset, and hopefully I'll be able to talk Mike into giving me a vehicle for Grand Blaze. I have at least one request a day for somebody wanting to use a courtesy car at Grand Blaze. For an example, Dr. Abbott also does FAA medicals. Within the last 6 months, I've probably had 6 people fly in from out of town that are using her for their FAA medicals. So they're flying into Grand Blaze, and I mean, they obviously will walk if the weather's nice, but they'll ask for a courtesy car so they can go down to the hospital real quick, get their medical, and come back. So that would be a nice added bonus if we could get that done. The last thing I got is the jet truck. It has been purchased for Lacey Fine. It has not been delivered yet, and I'm expecting a phone call any day now saying it's ready to be delivered. And I hope to have it by Memorial Weekend and in service. That's all I have. Anybody has any questions?
How do you set your fuel prices?
I get updates daily from our distributor, and we try to stay a dollar profit per gallon. So, and I'm buying fuel pretty regular, but that's, I keep it within that range.
It's basic, hard to live in.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out why one airport has less landings and more, 58% more in gallons. The other one has, is it smaller planes?
The smaller planes, that's what I was gonna say earlier, that's a trend that we've been seeing, at least we find, that's bigger aircraft coming in. So they're buying a larger quantity of fuel.
That's where the money's at.
Okay. Tie out one of your successes is your facilities look a lot better.
Better, thank you.
It could be a lot because of increased maintenance, maybe more of increased awareness of the facilities by your staff, but I would put that in the success column.
Thank you.
All right, well, I want to introduce our new Parks and Rec manager, Eric.
Hey.
I know I told him, I said, well, nothing like jumping 2 feet in. So I don't know whether he's decided he's taking this report. I know that previous park manager, Nicole, obviously helped with this, and I'm sure Mike is obviously just as much aware as what's going on in parks. So I will let you just decide how you want to handle Parks and Recreation with it. So.
I think Eric's very well versed in at least what we have on the 2 pages here, so I'm gonna let him go forward with that and then maybe make a few comments at the end.
I'll try, yeah. I can't take the credit for this. Nicole provided it for me, so, but I can add a little bit to it. I was suggested that I give a little bit of an introduction for those of you that don't know me. My name's Eric Gregory, new Parks and Rec manager. Happy to be here. A little bit about me, married 16 years. We don't have kids, got furry ones. We have 3 dogs and 2 cats, all rescue animals. My wife's corporate medical. She works in cardiology, so she travels quite a bit. We own property down past Greenview off Highway 7, and we just built a house. We're in the process of finishing it out. Worked for the state of Missouri for 23 years. Started out in law enforcement. Actually, I was one of your officer's former sergeants years ago, Mr. Stark. Yep, and then went to park management about 11 years ago. So I was assistant superintendent at Bennett Springs State Park for several years, and was up at Quiver River State Park for 8 years, and most recently at St. Joe State Park near Farmington, St. Joe, Missouri. And this position came open, and decided to apply, and here I am. So I was meant to be. So extremely happy to be here. I do not have a handout. Just
Page
throw that out
14
there.
and 15 of the packet.
So I'll go over everything and do my best to answer any questions. If not, I'm sure I'll jump in and help. Parks and Recreation Department consists of myself, Jake Alexander, our recreation specialist, and we have 3 park tech positions, our park maintenance, and I believe about 6 seasonals right now, although we're in the process of maybe filling some of those. As far as performance measures, we have approximately 332 kids signed up for Little League. As far as facility reservations, which includes shelters, fields in both parks, 351 so far. That includes practices for Little League, youth leagues games held, played 24 games so far this season. Tournaments, 5 tournaments up until now, and 10 local business sponsorships for Little League. Wins for the park, our maintenance plan has staff on track to meet their goals. Park's added rock landscape to all the dead areas around the park. Staff has received fantastic feedback on the upgraded areas. Up until then, it was just like bare dirt, and really unsightly. And so lots of compliments on that. Dan and Mike, our 2 park techs, have done an excellent job keeping our park fields healthy and beautiful. I've worked several Little League games and received lots of compliments on how nice everything is. And as somebody coming from working in a lot of parks, I will tell you, your city parks are very well maintained. I was quite impressed whenever I came here. So kudos to Dan and Mike. And we just hired a 3rd park tech position, and his first day was today. He does have experience in Little Leagues, and I believe he could be a fill-in umpire too if needed. So that's good.
Seems like he's gonna be a good fit. Recently purchased new mowers, which are fantastic. They've cut down on a lot of time and maintenance. Moving into projects, I'm kind of hurrying along here in the interest of time. We will be replacing the pier railing at the pond. I believe materials are already purchased, so that's gonna be in the near future. We also plan on painting the pavilions at Osage Beach City Park. There's a repair needed to the backstop on Field 3, which I'm gonna discuss with Public Works tomorrow at our meeting. The volleyball court is still a work in progress. Mike and I are talking about different options for that, what the best approach for that project is. Mike's currently working on bids for material on the culvert, which a week or two ago partially collapsed. Access to the lakefront property is currently blocked off for safety reasons. We do have a meeting with Public Works tomorrow at 1 p.m. to try to at least temporarily fix it and make it passable. And I believe it's set to be replaced here in a month or two. The road project resurfacing will take place in early summer. We also plan on adding more speed bumps for the safety of our park visitors. Speeding through the park is a huge safety concern. This is my second week on the job, just being in the office. I've seen it a lot. Nobody sees the 15-mile-an-hour signs. That needs to be done. Bids for irrigation will be going out soon. And other capital projects are waiting on feedback for the park master plan, which we met with them last week. Concerns. Major concern is vehicles in the park. Right now, we have 2 vehicles, a 1-ton dump truck and a 1-ton pickup truck that are having major problems getting to the point where they're becoming unsafe to drive. Mike was gracious enough to reach out to Public Works. We are picking up an extra vehicle for them temporarily to use for a week or 2, and we're going to get the other vehicles in to assess exactly what repairs are needed. Concession stands still a major problem with staffing. You need at a minimum 2 to 3 staff on nights for little leagues just to keep up. We are in the process of another seasonal. She just needs to take her drug test, and then we're going to interview for a few more. Road along the soccer field, it's a constant battle to keep up with the potholes, especially due to the recent flooding. We did add gravel, but we just got another load of gravel in today, and we're going to be filling in a lot of those potholes, making it a little bit more passable. Soccer fields, I was told to emphasize this, are more the dog park. Need to take a look at fencing at least 2 of the fields off so athletes can play without dodging dog feces. Really need to start addressing the need for a dog park, which will be discussed in the master plan meeting, which we did.
I have a perfect area in mind.
It would be outstanding. So still a shortage of umpires. I think this was touched on earlier by Cindy, both Little League and adult slow pitch. We're still advertising on Facebook. I think we're going to discuss other options for getting the word out. $40 a game. It's interesting to me that we're having that many problems finding people that want to do that, but I don't know. So Phoenix Park. Restrooms are terrible when it comes to plumbing. We need to look at a new facility in the near future. I have some background in that I'll discuss with Mike on options and see what we can do putting it on budget. So that's about all I had. I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Just a couple of comments. I want to just piggyback onto him. First of all, the volleyball court. If the board remembers, not in the 2022 budget, in the 2021 budget, we had budget for $10,000 worth of riprap to riprap the back of that volleyball court to help us save that hillside from sliding down into the volleyball court. And we had talked about having Rob and the transportation department do that work in-house. And they have done their best, but Rob has his own schedule. Rob can't be at the park all the time. It is kind of a side project for him, and he just has not had the time to really get into it as much as we would have liked him to. So I'll be discussing options with Gina on whether or not we want to continue down that path or look at hiring somebody to finish that project, or maybe abandoning the project for this year and picking it up next year. But if you have been up there recently, you can see that that hillside is sliding down into that volleyball court, and we can't just wait for Rob to do that in his spare time anymore. It's something that has to be addressed at some point if
Sounds
we're
like
going
a
to be
good
able to.
project on Erickson's.
So that's one big thing. Vehicle concerns are something I'll touch on when I get to my session a little later. The culvert, we are meeting tomorrow to talk about the culvert. Culvert is something that I do think we can accomplish in-house. We will be bidding out the materials for the culvert and having transportation department install that. That's something that we've planned on for a while now. I think there's some savings to be had there from what we budgeted. So that is a project that's going to be moving forward in short order here. And then also the irrigation pump, which is budgeted. The irrigation pump, I will warn you ahead of time, just like with everything else, costs have gone up. What we budgeted for the irrigation pump is not likely to fit into what those bids come in at. We'll see how that goes once that comes in. Just wanted to add a few things there, and then if anybody has any questions for Eric or I, we're happy to answer.
I've got a few. You touched base on some of the things I was going to ask. Volleyball court, basically they're unusable at this point, correct?
One of them is usable, the other one is not.
Okay, and were they ever in use last summer?
One was able to be used, but both haven't been able to be used for more than 2 years now.
So that's where I'm heading with this conversation is we paid money to put in these volleyball courts, and we know we've got issues with them, and now here it is 2 years down the road, and we still don't have them 100% functional or usable. So obviously that's something that we definitely need to address in our talks regarding budget and specifically the volleyball courts, because it seems silly to me that we spent all this money installing them and we can't even use them. That's number one. Number two, didn't we approve for 2022 in the budget the replacement of the white Ford pickup truck already? Wasn't that?
We did. And I'll be addressing the vehicles as a whole in my budget, but as we talked about outside, I couldn't buy a vehicle on state bid right now if I wanted to. Kevin, myself, and even Ty have been in contact with many of the dealerships, and again, I'll go into that a little bit more later, but we're turning our attention to the used market right now because that's likely the only place we're going to be able to find vehicles that will at least stay somewhat within the budget that we have for these vehicles.
But we did approve replacement of one of the two vehicles. We just are not having any luck getting that replaced. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you. Question. So the culvert that failed at the park, has that failed before? Have we had issues?
It's
in
failed
before?
every May for at
Okay,
least
well, that's
4
kind of what I
years.
thought. Is there anything else that we need to be looking about something being redesigned, or is this something that
This
we're
is-
just gonna expect to?
It has been. 2013 was the first year with the big flood that when
Uh-huh.
flooded. Previous boards with budget, we never got it in there, and then when we finally did, we realized what we got in there wasn't gonna work. Public Works has done work in the past, and it has been redesigned and engineered, which appreciate the board putting that in the budget, but we think that redesigned can also now be done some work in-house. So that's what we'll be handling this year as budgeted, so.
Okay. And then, for the concession stands, has anybody contacted the schools, like the high schools, to put out, like, sometimes I get, for my kids' school, we will get emails about, like, the YMCA has this summer program for kids and stuff. Have we contacted any of the schools to see if they can put anything out for high school kids looking for jobs? Maybe they just don't, I know that we've had it on the Facebook, but, on our Facebook page, but if they don't subscribe to our Facebook page, if there's a way to get it out there to the kids that would be applying?
We actually have, and we had Nicole attend one of their job fairs, and we did end up getting, I think, one out of that. But we're gonna take it even a step further, and one of the things that Eric and I are gonna talk about is approaching some of the schools and other community, community organizations. Talk about seeing if they're interested in maybe helping us run the concession stand on certain nights, to see if we can take some of the stress off of some of our staff, which is shorthanded as it is. So we are open to any and all ideas, options. Everything is on the table for us as it has been every year. This is, make no mistake, this is not a new struggle. This is a struggle that we have gone through year after year after year. We have tried outsourcing it. We have tried, we've reached out to the schools before, but it has been several years, and we're hopeful that maybe we'll have better luck this time.
And if they reach out to the organizations, I don't know about what we can do, but if we do, if you participate, we'll give you 1% or whatever
Right.
to give them an incentive. That would be maybe something to think about. And then also, I'm just glad you guys talked about the Peanut Park bathrooms because, yeah, they need a little TLC.
Are you willing to hire, or do you have to hire people for the concession stand? Or can you hire an organization?
That's what they'll be researching, how we can partner with
Okay.
the organization.
Okay, that's why I would bring up, because that's youth group, my youth group at church.
Yep.
10 years ago, when I was in charge of it, we did stuff like that, where we, the problem was you didn't have the same people there, but you always had somebody there that would do what they were doing, but I just didn't know if we could hire an organization and take care of individuals with our insurance and stuff.
Well, they're gonna have to run through those loopholes to see what legally and, the government, but.
So I guess I'm next, but is the road project the same as the road along the soccer field? Says road project will take place early summer, so the road will be a constant battle. So are those the two?
They're technically separate. The Hatchery Road resurfacing is part of the pavement maintenance plan for 2022. And so that will be bid out. As a matter of fact, I think the bid went out.
We'll go Friday.
Goes out Friday, okay? So that's gonna be bid out, but that is only for the already paved portion of Hatchery, Richard. So that will end right past the playground parking lot. There is no plans to pave any further at this time.
And the general answer is no, they're separate projects.
They are separate projects, yes, sir.
Spirit of town. We're Peanut Park Parking Addition. I don't see, did I miss an update here on that?
Well, we just listed other projects, are awaiting feedback from the park master plan. One of the directive we got from the board was don't move forward with those projects until we get a little far enough in the park master plan where we can get an idea whether or not the professionals agree with us.
So would that be the same answer for the box culvert reconstruction?
Now, the box culvert reconstruction is moving forward. I'm meeting with Kevin and Rob and Eric tomorrow. We have those plans ready to go, and we'll be bidding those out later in May.
Okay, so that's where I got confused. I thought, okay.
I think the two parking lot additions are the ones that we were trying to get information.
So the box culvert reconstruction, we've changed the design? Is that what I think I hear?
Not since it's been in the budget. It's in the budget now because we designed the problem to fix for the past several
All right,
years.
I'll take it offline. It's still confusing to me. And oh, Boy Scouts. You guys ever look to the Boy Scouts for help? We've had a couple of, it seems like there's somebody down here in this district area with the Boy Scouts that has taken a much more active role. They've been to our Rotary a couple of times. If you get with them, fine, but all I can tell you is it seems like there seems to be a growing interest. I can speak to that a little bit. That might be a place to look for some help in the rest or in the concession stands.
Excellent.
Remind me tomorrow and I'll send you Amanda's contact information.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Tyler?
No, Kelly asked what I was gonna ask.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay, we're down to the last three. Let you guys talk faster, maybe. Public Works, I know you've got transportation, water, sewer.
Thank goodness I didn't do the PowerPoint. I think my quiz notes are in the packet. Public Works has had a really transformative year, to say the least. It doesn't really resemble what it did just a year ago. We've had 9 new hires, 7 in the sewer department alone, and 2 in the water department, and 2 more to come in transportation just to replace some recent retirees that we just had. So it's really exciting, and at that point, when everyone's back at the staff, will be at 24. We will be at full staff, I'm pretty confident, in just a week or 2. Obviously, these hires are adding, considerable amount of talent, experience, and potential to the division. Obviously, it goes without saying, our continued success lies in the retention of these individuals. You can't even put there's an exponential loss whenever you lose talent, and so it's my responsibility and everyone else's to try to keep these guys here as they become more and more valuable every year. I'm not saying. One of the most concerning challenges continues to be the inflationary impacts on departmental budgets and the ongoing supply chain issues that are felt daily on our programs. The time when you could you identify an issue and then you go order the parts and you get them in a day or 2 are over. And what concerns me about this specifically is we get into a jam where we have, a water main break and a certain kind of coupler or fitting, and it just won't, you cannot get it. You call Springfield, they don't have it. When can you get it? 2 weeks. Well, in the meantime, we've got a water main break and 30 houses out of water. We have not been bit by this, but this is my fear. And you just can't have enough of these items on, and you can't afford to have enough items on in inventory to account for this. And I know this is the same struggle that's happening all over the United States. You can't have a warehouse full of parts. It's not feasible, it's not economically viable. And so this is one of the things that troubles me the most, is this supply chain is gonna bite me in the back end. And it's a struggle, for sure. Everything from, again, vehicles, which Mike, I think, is gonna talk about, paint, chemicals, sewer pumps, electrical supplies, etc. The impact is every day. And I hate to tell people when they ask me, when's this gonna get done? I don't know. When we get this done. But I see it being a challenge into the future, for sure, at least in the short term. Needs, Public Works Facility, which most of you folks have seen or been in it, at 5757 Chapel Drive, I think, was incorporated from an old National Guard armory. It's just flatly inadequate for vehicle storage, vehicle maintenance, office spaces. The building has no locker rooms. There's no changing rooms. There's 1 shower stall, again, for 24 people, and female staff. And so what that means is sewer personnel don't take showers because they'll take up the 1 bathroom when they'll go home and their sewer closed because they don't want to change because there's no changing room, and don't get in their truck, it smells. Spoiler alert. So there's a lot of deficiencies here in personnel, and I talked about retention a little bit. But in light of all these things, my plan is to ascertain a new building. Where would it fit? How big would it need to be on currently city-owned property, and what on earth would that cost? That's kind of where I'm at with that issue. It's not a front burner, but of course, it's a long-term thing that needs to be budgeted out for sure. I can give you just a quick anecdote about leaving equipment outside. About 35–40% of our equipment sits outside. And one of the most egregious examples of this is we have 2 tow generators. One of them is about 90 kilowatt, and we have another one that's about 250 kilowatt. These are large capital assets with an immense amount of value, especially if you have alphabet straight line winds or whatever. Guess what? Look at your watch, set it, and give yourself about 5 hours. That's how much water you have left. And after that, you're done. So without a generator, without backup power, you don't have water. Forget about sewer. That's going in the lake. There's nothing you can do about that. We have 1,300 lift stations. Those can't all be powered. But water under the bridge, if you don't have water, things go medieval. So these generators were sitting outside because they obviously made the decision, well, I drive this truck every day. I'm going to stick the generator outside. what's the big deal? But when I got there a year ago again, I thought, that's fantastic, we got two big generators. Well, one had been eaten by rats to the point where the motherboard was gone, the control board was gone, the three-phase wiring was gone, the dynamo was damaged. Those two capital assets were left, to the wolves basically, or to the rats in this case. And those are gone. They're just gone. And it's just because they were abused, they weren't maintained. So I say, well, that's just criminally stupid. But the point is that you can't honestly go out and check the inside, the interior of the generator cabinets every day to make sure there's no rats in there. It's not possible. So that's part of the struggle of leaving equipment outside. And it's not just generators, we leave vehicles outside, but all this is encompassing into the decision to try and look forward to like, okay, I can understand the need, what will get me to where I need to be someday, so that's where that item comes from. Moving on, the need for a combination vac jetter truck is more than evident. The city is due to replace a 26-year-old F550 pump truck. This is what's called the large pump truck. It really should be replaced with a combination jetter vac truck that will be useful for all three departments. This truck can perform hydro excavation, jetting, materials cleaning, vacuuming. When I say vacuuming, it's basically just a gigantic vacuum. The current pump truck is not powerful enough to clean up deep lift stations like Sands and Rockaway. And honestly, when I first got here, I said, there's 88 major lift stations, but there's no vac truck. I wonder how that works. The answer is it doesn't. So we can't lift the floating mat, which is rags and stuff on a Rockaway lift station. We have to hire it out. They come in from Jeff City and they get $1,300, and we got to do that a number of times. But that's one of the biggest. If I could wave a magic wand, that's one of the biggest pieces of equipment that I've identified is certainly a need for. Moving on, the public works fleet in general is definitely feeling its age. Where the average age of my fleet is 10 years old. Obviously got vehicles that are almost 30 years old, 18, 14, and so on. The troubling part is there's a confluence of a lot of a third or more, I would say, the entire fleet are 10 years old. 10 years old, 10 years ago, there must have been a flurry of vehicle purchases. The problem with that, of course, is they're all in line, right? There's no way we're gonna, in 3 years, replace 12 vehicles. That can't happen. So Mike and I are gonna have to parse through there and prioritize the replacements. And we don't need to talk about trying to buy a vehicle these days, but part of the struggle as well. Moving into the departments, transportation department is fully staffed at 7 full-time employees. We're hiring again the 2 replacements for the retirees last month, and we're going to schedule those interviews later this week. The inmate offender program is back after a brief delay due to the retirement turnover. Rick Russell, who was our inmate handler, if you will, retired, and so we have someone new to step up and take his place, which is a commitment. You have to come in early, you have to stay late. Shift changes. The LED, again, conversion on Parkway is done, City Hall's done, so once we get done with painting and some other projects, we'll turn our attention back to the LED program. Crack sealing goal for the PMP, the pavement management plan, is about 70% done. We ran into a lot of rain and immediately hot weather, so the last 30% of the PMP plan is gonna have to be addressed in fall. Not when we want to, but because we have to. You can't crack seal in summer because you will make a lot of people mad. You'll have a lot of bills cleaning off cars because of the tack. Obviously, it's kicked up on the car. It doesn't care. We now have 9 bituminous road patches from winter done. It's a lot of changes in a week, so I'm putting in my updates here as I go. Eric, there's one cut right at the end of Hatchery Road there. You've probably seen it. I didn't forget about you.
Yes,
We're gonna get that one. That was a sewer break that was done in January. Take care of that one too. It's on the list. Obviously, all summer requirements like mowing, weed whipping, weed spraying are well underway. Road striping. Road striping on the Parkway, both east and west sides. The linear paint is largely done. The entire project, however, is about 6% done. So they're going into neighborhoods now, it's more time consuming, they're doing stop bars and doing turn arrows and the manuals, things like that. The linear striking goes really fast, that was done in almost under a week. But Rob is on some more time consuming part of that training project. Culvert replacement, after that, we'll be kicking off May 25th. If anyone sees the LED board on Osage Beach Parkway, there's a notification there. Of the culvert, we're gonna replace at least 8 culverts on Osage Beach Parkway, maybe 9. A lot of them are completely hatched out, and some of them are just iffy, and I like Rob's plan where if he's in the road and they're even questionable, he's taking them out and just doing them all down the line. They're getting replaced with a much more resilient type. You know, culverts are typically galvanized or wrinkle tin. They rot, they get crushed. The stuff we put in is ABS plastic and has a lot longer lifespan. So that's next for the transportation department. Moving on to water. Water's fully staffed with 5 full-time employees. Water department has again been most affected by these budgetary constraints, specifically relating to the aging water meters that are failing at an increasing rate, which I've talked a little bit about before. I think we should look at a standalone meter replacement project. 70% of the water's repaired system budget was consumed by water meters, and looking at the numbers that were just released here by Kerry, I think we're just gonna we maybe just bought enough meters to handle this year, so I feel good about that. The other side of it is, this will be an ongoing thing every year, so to me, this looks like a prime candidate for an ARPA grant funding target, so we'll be having a lot of meetings with Mike and Gina and so on in the future, but if we can, in one master stroke, knock out all the meters in one shot, we'll be in a good place. I think that's a good target for ARPA. SCADA, which Michael talked about, water and sewer are both affected by this and been out of service for over 2 months now. It's been an obvious drain on labor. We have had mishaps, none of them major, where we're gonna make the news, and we've been lucky on that. So the scheduling is where as soon as basically the day after Memorial Day, we get boots on the ground and they're going to start installing. There's several phases to that. Won't get into the weeds there, but service will begin to be restored in 2 to 3 weeks. Thank God. Swiss Well 3, which we talked about, that pump and motor's been replaced. We've fixed a bunch of deficiencies there. Most of us know about that. The bad news is, and that's all I ever deliver, it seems like, is like last Friday, Bluff Well was identified to have what is believed to be a corrosion hole in the casing. What this means is there's a casing that's going down into the water where the pump and motor are. When you have a hole in that casing that is normally held up by the 3 check valves, that water evacuates. So what happens is when you turn on the 120 horsepower motor, you have the mother of all water hammer effects going on. So it'll shake the entire floor. You could be outside in the parking lot in the street and you'll feel it. Once we have those identified, we obviously can keep the well in service. It works technically. If you do that enough times, it's not going to work at all. You'll bust piping in the street and so forth. So long short is the well set is 15 years old. The pump and motor are probably going to have to be replaced. The last one was expensive. This one will probably be worse. We don't know. We know until we get the well pulled out of the hole. There was a piecemeal kind of a repair done, I think, by Rick King in 2013. And so we'll know more next week. The roofs and doors on 5 separate well houses require replacement. We've got rough dug doors. We've got roofs. Every time we get a good wind, we lose shingles on. The bottom line for that is $115,000, which again goes back to ARPA, as well as the 2 generators I talked about. I think targets for ARPA. Sewer department. Lastly but not leastly, we are down to 1 employee that left just recently. That was what I call a good loss. Let's put it at that. We have 1 inbound new hire that's in the process. He'll be here just I think next week.
One's the 23rd and one's the 31st.
31st. So we're going to be up to staff here shortly, and the department continues to be well staffed, attracts regional skilled technicians. Part of that, what Cindy talked about, is posting his 1, 2s, and 3s. Some of the projects underway, the sewer department, are grinder station maintenance, which never ends, the duplex pump replacements, which the board authorized back in January. We just received a huge load of those pumps, and that's how long it took. We just received a bunch of PE 105s, 5 horsepower pumps. We've got a floor full of them, and those are going in. The gravity sewer jetting is being ongoing this summer, as well as the lift station relabeling project, which is part of GIS. Also, the 3-phase lift station is going on, it's about 40% complete. So far, so good, but they haven't really got to a lot of the stations where we think there are issues. So what that's done is left us with the sewer staff concentrate on the far more numerous small stations while these guys bang away on the big 3-phase ones. It's working out really well. Successes in the sewer department, I think the Boca water control contract the city's had for many years was great that it was allowed to lapse. That ended in April. The city last year spent $154,000 in chemical-based odor control, and I have no plans we shouldn't even fund that budget next year for any reason. We don't need it. So that's a win. City uses no costly chemical-based odor control, relies totally on non-chemical aeration and ozone for disinfection of the H2S gas that people gratefully find offensive. I'll note on that topic also for the board, the fourth and final plan to install the my odor control plan will be on the next agenda item, the next agenda for the board meeting. This one differs from the other in that, I won't go in the weeds here, it doesn't have aeration, it just uses ozone fogging because there's no added benefit to any downstream station, but it's similar in methodology to sands, which I hope you guys have all noticed does not smell, as well as KK37 before that, and also a Rockway. So that's done. After this last one, if the board still chooses to move on that one, the order control is done as far as I have planned. Also a win is the addition of small fractional horsepower aerators has eliminated the need of a fog pump out program. We used to have a program where, like at Wobbly Boots, we would inspect it, we would find it needs to be pumped out. We back charge Wobbly Boots. Instead of doing that, we installed basically a $105 koi pond aerator, and the grease is being dissolved to the microbial level and just pumped out. You would say, well, is that good? It is good because what would happen with the grease and fog program is that the floats would get locked into the mat, the grease, basically discharged from these restaurants, and it would go high level and we'd spill, and then we'd call for a pump out. Well, we killed all those birds with one stone, so I call that a win as well. Because of the increased staffing levels, more grinders and lift stations are getting more eyes on than they have in many, many years, which is huge. We're building up the mechanical integrity of the system, and that will only improve as time goes on. Lastly, GIS. We kind of honestly got a GIS tech by accident. We had an opening in the locator position, and we happened to have gotten a bonus. He was a trained GIS tech. That has been huge for us. With the addition of Thomas, our GIS specialist, he's added a wealth of functionality to Public Works. Oftentimes he talks over my head, but I eventually figure out what he's talking about. He's assisted us in restarting our geographic asset management from basically a complete stasis to moving forward really quickly. And basically, if we can squeeze him in, I'd like to do a board agenda demonstration with GIS in June or July, whenever the time allows, just to hear from the horse's mouth and basically how the GIS is functioning currently. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question. Well, maybe I do. I think we need to consider to order a case of Librium for Kevin to put up with all the stress that he's been under. And the striping on the parkway looks awesome. Thank goodness, really. And especially with the heavy rain that we had, it was so difficult to see to drive, and especially at my age, but nevertheless, it looks they did a fantastic job. And I couldn't help but think a couple years ago, when there was some striping that was done, and our area was a wonder it didn't get on national TV, because they were
Come a
making,
long ways.
they were making fun of how they didn't know what they were doing, or the machinery was wrong. And anyway, it was just a mess. Didn't even look like, remember that?
A really
Yeah,
sharp
yeah.
learning curve, but yeah.
I know equipment too, I know equipment played a factor.
And also, that odor control equipment that you installed at Andy's, it works.
Thank you.
I was there twice and talked to employees on 2 different days, and they said, oh my God, it's a blessing. And I said, yes, it is.
Happy
So,
to hear it.
yeah, but thank you, Kevin. I just can't believe this headache, not only of the money that's going to be involved that the city's looking at, of the problems that we've got over there. Yeah. But thank you.
All right. I've said this to you before, Kevin, you start speaking, I start glazing over.
Sorry. You can't make it interesting.
You have so much on your plate, I don't know how you keep track of all
Yeah.
these projects. Kudos to you, you have really turned around that department. I only have one question, and this may be more for Mike. Didn't we already have discussions last year about the back jetter? Wasn't that on a budget, on a proposed budget for this department prior to Kevin?
When I went over there in the summer of 2020, this is one of the things I recognized was an issue. At that particular time, I asked for permission and received it to buy a jetter truck. I did not think at that time there was any way that I was gonna be able to get the combo truck. And we talked about that when I brought it up.
I remember discussions regarding this.
So Kevin is just kind of latching on to what I started there and realizing the same thing that I did, and that is that eventually we need to get that piece of equipment. I do think that piece of equipment may be able to replace some of, 2 or 3 pieces that we have in inventory. Kevin and I and Gene are still talking about that. Whether that happens in the next budget cycle or the one after, I'm not sure yet, but Kevin's right. It is a time saver, and it's a money saver once you get it. So we'll see what happens.
Do you remember off the top of your head, what was an estimated cost for that?
I think the one that Kevin's looking at right now is just a little south of $500,000.
That's all I had, was I
It didn't get
remember.
approved
I
in the
remember,
budget.
what'd you say?
It came
No.
to the budget and the board bounced it out.
Correct, I remember that. Along with a camera truck.
So we never did purchase a jetter truck?
We have a jetter truck.
We did purchase that.
Yeah, we do.
But we didn't do the combo that was
Yeah.
originally
It's
proposed.
essentially half of the combo truck.
So a couple questions I have. We have a grease trap. I heard, it sounds like we have restaurants that are pumping grease into our system.
Oh, yes.
And we implemented what I thought was a policy about 2 years ago that gave us some teeth so that we could minimize if not eliminate that.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
So you can attack that by one of 2 ways. One is a fog program where basically it's either a function of the building department or the inspections department or public works. I've seen it all 3 ways, where you actually go in, you talk to the manager, and basically there's a clipboard and you say, when's the last time you cleaned this grease trap? Okay, you check the dates and it was signed by, Santa cleaning. You're familiar with that?
I had 500 restaurants.
Yeah, you are. So there's the fog program. The other way, which is the way that we were handling it, was basically sewer department personnel were tasked to go out on a route and inspect the wet wells, okay, the grinder stations where that grease, as you know, isn't supposed to be, and wait till a point where it has to be backed out of the wet well, where if you're basically violating waste discharge rules to put grease into there, and then we call a subcontractor who would come out, break it up, and then back the grease out. And then that bill would then be back charged, for example, to restaurant X.
Okay.
That was how we were handling it. We weren't preventing. We were basically, once it got into our system, we were back charging the restaurant for that service.
Can I add a comment?
So again, let me ask the question again. Why is it what we have in place is not the teeth to stop what I think is continuing and hasn't changed since we implemented our policy?
We still have that teeth. As a matter of fact, I have 2 that I'm getting ready to talk to Ron about for compliance issues. When we started that program right before Kevin got here, we got a lot of our restaurants in compliance. Yes, there are still issues, and yes, we're handling them better with the digesters now. But when our guys find those issues in the field, I am still forwarding that information over to compliance to make sure that compliance then follows up with those restaurants or businesses, because I know a lot of them have put the grease process in place that we have in that ordinance. So I have 2 that I'm getting ready to turn over to Ron for compliance. And yes, the digesters that Kevin has put in place help with that. But when we see those problems, we are still passing on to the building department to deal with the compliance issues.
We should never put digesters in. We just should not do that.
Why is that?
Because they shouldn't be putting grease in our system.
I don't have the personnel nor the budget to create a fog program. That would take an entire, like, a full-time
It
job.
does, but I don't think we have, so we'll take this offline, I
Sure.
apologize.
Sure.
So the main question that I have is call-outs on water and sewer. I know that it's just partially through the year, but do you know if we're tracking any higher or lower than what we expected?
I know that spills, I didn't grab that data. I know that spills are down. I actually have the DNR rep call me and say, hey, your spills are down. I'm like, yes, they are.
So is that what call-outs are?
Call-outs, well, yeah,
Calls are
call-outs.
just anytime they're called up for.
Yeah,
Okay.
90% of call-outs are flashing lights.
Right.
Um,
Well, I was hoping over time that the maintenance program would start reducing those, as we got staff. So I was just wondering how we were tracking. The last thing I have is striping. It's great to see a striping. I think that, I'm gonna describe it this way, I had this conversation with Rob. It feels like we're sending your guys to a gunfight with a pocket knife. At the end of the day, with the equipment we have, I think we did a pretty good job, okay? But as I drive down the Parkway, there's just a lot of different things there, and I just don't think we have the right equipment. And so I guess I would ask, as we get towards budget, that we look at, we either need to have equipment to do striping the right way, or we need to get out of the striping in-house business on the Parkway at least. The side streets, we're all very comfortable that the equipment we have is sufficient on the side streets, but it's generally not sufficient for what we're trying to do on the Parkway. But I love the fact that you guys are trying, okay? But again, I don't think you have anywhere close to the right tool. My challenge is that, the Parkway is kind of, whether it's I guess I would just say it's the showcase of our town. And at the end of the day, it's not poor, but it's not great in the level that I would hope to demonstrate. Even though I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish, I think we're sending you to a gunfight with a pocket knife. So I'll leave it at that. That's all I got.
I must have been going too fast, I didn't see.
What time was it, fellas?
Where are you coming from, fellas?
Enough said.
More questions for Public Works? Mike and Todd, Mike, can you summarize yours? A lot of these items I see on your handouts already been discussed.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I think I can do what I need to do in 5 minutes, so.
All right.
All right, so my focus is currently on project management and assisting IT, parks, airport, and public works with purchasing and daily operations issues and challenges that come up. As I move into the summer, I'll be transitioning into assisting those departments with budgeting and forecasting discussions as we prepare for budget. I'm also in the process of training our new parks manager, and we'll be kind of busy with that over the next couple of weeks. At the same time, I'm also in the process of researching multiple local, state, and federal grants associated with future parks, airport, and public works projects. These include SRF matching grants. Thank you. I had a printing issue. Thank you so much. It didn't start off that way, it just went that way in the middle. This includes SRF matching grants, ARPA, the BIL grant, the TAP grant, and many others. And then something that I know I've spoke with some board members about, not all of you, we are also in the process right now of discussing the possibility of the city owning the Lacey Fine property with Missouri State Park. So that's a big thing. That's a thing that I think eventually will help us dramatically improve the economic viability of that airport. So that's huge. Additionally, I also assist Cindy with various HR related duties, whether that be software or administration support, new employee interviews with multiple departments and other HR duties. Positives that I have, we are already deep into the 2022 construction project schedule. I've listed all those projects out there and where I am as far as those projects are concerned. Another big positive is really the communication and workflow between the city and Cochrane. I can't tell you enough how important that has been for the city. Their help as we continue to try and get our infrastructure goals accomplished has been huge. The way that my job has changed since Stacy left, I couldn't do it without their help. So that is huge for us, very big positive. And then I'm also in the process of working on several ordinance updates in association with various department heads related to public works design guideline updates, sales surplus updates, and then I'll be working with Eric with park fee structure changes and other changes as we kind of work through the park master plan. Those changes, as they come to fruition, will all be brought before the board for discussions, hopefully later this year or early next year. Concerns. The biggest concern I have right now, well, the two biggest concerns I have right now are, number one, Antioch. I'll just kind of summarize this real quick. When we started this year, we felt very strongly from all the communication that we've had that the citizens on Antioch were on board with water and sewer upgrades, right? That's what everybody thought. Well, we've gotten the letters back from them, and guess what? None of them are interested in water and sewer upgrades.
Did you send an email out about this?
No.
Oh.
So we're gonna have a discussion about this on the next board meeting. I'm not gonna really get into that any further right now, but just know that there's gonna be a discussion on that as far as what direction we go on that. That's a big issue and a project that, obviously we're gonna have to look at whether or not we can continue with it. The next biggest struggle is finding vehicles. I am on every state bid list that is available in the state. I have been trying to find vehicles for the city for the budgeted vehicles that we have all year so far, and we have struck out in every one of those, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. 3 of the 4 vehicles that we have budgeted for, there is a pretty strong need to replace. So I'm currently scouring the used market to try and find used vehicles that are at least somewhat in line with what was budgeted. So we're trying to figure that out right now, and see what we can do to replace those vehicles. And then last but not least, project costs continue to rise by as much as 30% or more, and that trend will continue. As Dave Van Leer has mentioned, the most recent evidence of that is, if you haven't looked at your budget packet or your packet for the next meeting yet, I do have a drainage project on that agenda that is almost double what we budgeted for it. So those are issues that we continue to deal with. And that's all I have. So if there's any questions, let me know.
That was amazing, Mike.
It was over 5. Been good for Mike.
Still, that was good.
That was amazing.
Not a question, but a comment. Will the board, you don't have to answer this, Jim, but you bring an answer back. Will the board have to give some special instructions, some special, approvals to get into the used market. I mean, when we buy new, we bid it out. But on the used market, by the time Mike finds it, and it's 2 days after the board meeting, and he brings it to the board, and he goes, and we approve it, and he goes back and says, I want it, they're saying it's gone.
There is, short answer, yes, we're gonna have a few different variables to deal with, because we say in our purchasing code, a certain dollar amount we bid out. That's not formal bidding if it's over
I
a
know,
certain
that's
dollar.
what I'm just saying.
So there's some factors I need to work through the legalities to get the path, and then ultimately it would have to be like Ty did with his, a not to exceed of this dollar. We did this years ago with the van, and I have to go back to kind of, because we still gotta meet our purchasing code, and if they're over a certain dollar, they're not formal, but ultimately get to the board and say, okay, here's the range of what I'm looking at, here's the not to exceed, I gotta have permission to buy now if I find.
That's right.
I had directed staff as like, listen, if there is a dire need, let's go look in the used market. But if you can keep them going and it maybe messes up our fleet plan, then we're gonna ride it out. Every municipality is dealing with this. Government contracts are being dropped because the dealers who are the vendors are saying, wait a minute, I can't keep up with the public market, more or less the government market.
Yeah.
And Enterprise, who does all the local around us, does all those, he told me, he said, I know you guys aren't Enterprise and didn't do our program, but he said, if you're not ordering double of what you need, half the orders are still gonna be canceled in the next 12 to 18 months. And I was like, well, we don't, we're not even a municipality that orders 20 to 50 at a time. He said, you better be ordering double, because you're not even gonna get, about half of them they expect is being canceled. So we're not the only one, but we are fighting in with the sharks like everybody else now. So if we have to replace them, maybe we find used, but you're buying used at a premium and you're just wasting equity. So if you do not have to replace it, I'm suggesting to the management, wait it out. We'll just have to put some more repair and keep what we going, but wait it out is probably, but that's, as I get recommendations, there might be one or twos. I do know there are some needs, but we'll just, what do we got? How do we beg our own fleets? Because you're wasting a lot of equity at premium and used.
Used ordinance. I would just say, and I've asked a couple of folks that I know that recently they're in the car market one way or another. It is a seller's market. It is a terrible time to be a buyer of any.
This is like a house. If you can wait. Otherwise, your money's gone. So.
Any other questions?
It's more of a request than a question. I can probably do this myself. I'm gonna ask you to do it. Can you upgrade us on the remaining road projects that were budgeted for this year? Like, we know we've got Autumn Lane, Industrial Drive, Amy Lane, but I seem to remember Explorer Court. I'm trying to remember what other roads we had for resurfacing or.
Probably best that I just put that in an email to the board.
That's what I'm asking, as an update, because on your positives, you went over some of the roads I remember, but on the top of my head, I don't remember what else was approved as far as roads for this year.
And when he does that, I'll give you the details of what my predictions are because of what's happening, what
Some of
prices.
those may not be forthcoming.
Oh, there's gonna be decisions. I mean, otherwise you're gonna use all your restricted, but that's your guys' choice.
If you could, please.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
In the spirit of things, I'll just let everybody refer to this, and if you have any questions.
Because there's a lot of it that's been covered. I'll touch on the accomplishments. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit. Accomplishments first, like Cindy touched on, we successfully implemented the police officer recruit. We've got 3 officers that went through that. 2 are off FTO and on their own now. We've got the body worn cameras they're in. Michael and Doug's been helping me get those set up. Doug's mounted some stuff on the wall. Thanks to Ron for letting him do that. Some of the struggles we're seeing, we're still working on our 2020 ammunition order, and we're about out. We qualify 4 times a year. We can't get ammo. We've ordered last year, or in 2021, we haven't received our order yet. They told us April, and we're in May, and we still haven't got it. We ordered our 2022 order. We may not see it till 24, who knows? But it does get into our training. We have to be proficient, and we need to train with our weapons 4 times annually is what our policy states.
Vehicle order, kind of to add to Mike's a little bit, at the Chiefs conference last week, the Chevy dealer said if, of course, we've got Fords, but they were the only ones there. They said if, as soon as the state bid orders, even if you're not gonna, for the 2023 budget, order it now, and you may get it in 2023. So, that's rough there. Background investigations, we're finally back to 3 investigators in the bureau now. Still 2 officers short on the road, actually 3, because we'll have 1 in the academy till July. So when we were trying to do backgrounds before, they were trying to juggle backgrounds, case logs, and it just, we couldn't keep up. We're almost caught up now. As far as some stuff coming up in 2023 that we're looking at, we need to upgrade 9 of our remaining laptops. Our Cradle Point in-car, Michael can probably explain this better at a later date, but they're gonna be obsolete, no longer update them. Because we've got 2 of those in the ambulance as well for a total of 11. Replacing 5 in-car printers, that'll be phase 2 of 3. Again, 2 more patrol vehicles is what we were looking at, but we've got to get these yet. And the increase in our training budget and overtime budget to accommodate some in-service trainings we need to complete. There's also an increase in the maintenance fee for our in-car cameras that we don't currently have, that we need to get some updates done to. Possibly the addition of a part-time evidence records clerk to allow us to get down and get our evidence room cleaned out. We're looking at maybe 2 to 3 days a week. That way allow whoever wants that position is filled to get down there and get that taken care of, the backlog that we're seeing now. Vehicle maintenance budget and overtime budget were both vehicle maintenance budget, we're at 50% of our 22 budgeted amount already. With the older cars, the higher mileage, we're seeing some very high maintenance repair costs. So our overtime budget, we're at 84% of the budget amount for this year. We will go over that this year. Some of it will be money in, money out that we're being reimbursed on grants that are starting up this month. But with us being shorthanded the first of the year, we really took a hit on that. Cindy touched on our positions open. So we've got, when all said and done after this week, hopefully we will only have 1 police officer position open. We've got 1 applicant that's coming in to test, that he was a former Missouri State Trooper, who's actually working in Oregon now and wanting to come back. Or he was a water patrol officer. I worked with him when he was on the water here. So 911 center, of course, staffing's our biggest issue there, and their overtime budget, but that should be kind of a wash since we're short on the 7 full-time positions. Struggles in there is our hiring, and we're, getting people trained. Accomplishments, the installation of the 911 system, completion of the Muslim radio upgrade, and Cindy touched on this. Our staff, 4 full-time communications officers, they're truly dedicated to their coworkers and the citizens of Osage Beach, keeping us up and running here. Couldn't do it without them. Emergency management, I don't have anything to report on that. Ambulance, accomplishments, we have the GEMT that Carrie helped us get the funds for. We got, basically, we were able to get reimbursed for $15,170 this year that was unbudgeted and we didn't plan
Is that
for.
the net?
That's the net.
I was gonna
yeah.
bring that up at the
Yeah.
next board meeting with the actual numbers,
So-
but I think that's the net amount.
Yeah, we actually, the gross would have been 23,321, and we had about an $8,100 administrative fee that we had to pay. So, but You know, it was money that we weren't expecting and in the past didn't get. So we should get either the same or more next year. So that's good. Same with our overtime budget there. We're actually at full staff in the ambulance on full-time employees. But right after we hired our last full-time employee, he got deployed for a year. So he technically didn't even get to start until next month or July. And then we currently do have one out on FMLA. But we're trying to keep that overtime down. We've got a pretty good staff of part-time employees, but sometimes the schedules just don't line out for them to work. And again, we need to replace their laptops too, because they have the same issue with the credit points. And we updated our reporting softwares, so that should help us take care of any of the billing miscues that we have, because it's not a state system now, it's actually ours. It's similar to what the state is, but we can have our own mandatory fields so we don't miss anything. That's all I've got. Buzzing through it real quick. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Oh, and Matrix is the last page. For the police department, we're working on drilling down on some more details on that.
I'll try to be really quick because I appreciate everybody, but increase in maintenance fee for in-car cameras, was that not expected?
We never, Michael and I, working with the vendor, we didn't realize we didn't have a maintenance agreement, and our in-car cameras have not been upgraded since at least 2016.
Okay, and then, so we used to think in this, when we used to talk about staffing, when we were 3 short, the midships or whatever, in patrol,
Right.
without those 3, we used to consider ourselves fully staffed, and we kind of changed that mentality.
That was 2. There would have been 2 officers.
Okay, I thought it was 3.
2, 3 to 3.
Well, I'm sorry?
Two working 3 to
2 that would work 3 to 3.
Okay, fair
That's
enough.
hard wording.
Okay, so when you talked about fully staffed, you're considering that those 2 are there and staffed, right?
They will be, yes.
Okay, so how are we so far over on overtime if we're so much more fully staffed than we were? Did we cut the overtime budget?
In the
Can I have a
meantime
vote?
of getting fully staffed, a lot of overtime has happened.
Right.
So
Because-
that overtime will slow down
But
as
we
the
were much
fully
less
staffed.
staffed before. Take it offline, sorry.
Yeah.
The last thing is policy, about qualifying. You say, is that a policy that we have internally?
Yes.
Okay, and so if we run out of ammunition or get so low, are we gonna have to, do you need help to change that policy? For example, the guys that haven't been here very long qualify 4 times a year and the other guys twice or something? I mean.
No, what we
You
can
can't run
do,
out of
we
ammunition.
can still, what we'll do is we'll reach out to NPR. They have, it's called the Milo simulator. We've had it here, and I don't know if all of you have had a chance to see it.
It's an
We can
electronic
utilize that
qualifier.
for training and
Yeah.
qualification too, if we need to.
All right.
So we could go to 2 live fires a year and then use that for 2 scenario based.
That's all I have, thanks.
We've got options for it around.
I just want to make a comment, I don't want to keep everybody here longer, but obviously our biggest issue under your head is the 911 center.
Correct.
Whatever plan of action we have, or whatever we think we're doing correctly, obviously that's not fixing the problem. So I think we probably need to regroup, that could be a separate special meeting, something needs to happen with that 911 center. We are relying on these 4 individuals, and once again, heaven forbid that there's an unexpected absence of one of them, and we're down to 3 individuals working a 24-hour system. How would that possibly ever work?
And I
For
apologize,
a
it
period of
worked
time last
because
year,
one
we
of them
did.
was off, yeah, one of
Yes.
them was off and had a baby,
Okay, so then,
So-
another one off, we're down to 2 911 call center people.
so
Two.
she was off, yeah.
So I'm saying, we've got to come up with something drastic to address that issue. Be it some humongous sign-on bonus, which at this point, I think that's probably in our best bet to do. Something, I don't want to say crazy, but $5,000 sign-on bonus to become a 911 dispatcher. We've got to do something drastic to fill some of these vacancies.
I
Okay,
am
that's-
all ears. The
that's a
chief,
different
the
conversation,
lieutenant,
but
I
no,
are
we've-
definitely all ears.
Well, drastic measures cause some drastic actions, and once again, we're going about that specific job need very wrong. And
We're
it needs to be
just-
treated differently than all the other vacancies with other departments.
To touch on that a little more, like this week, we had, or last week, I'm sorry, testing, we had 4 scheduled to come in, 2 showed up. we offered that. They both interviewed very well and tested probably better than the last ones that were best that we've had in quite a while. We've offered them a position contingent on their background. We're waiting for their background package to come. We'll start them tomorrow if they can start.
I think we're gonna do something very drastic, very, very drastic.
Just man hours.
So why can't you do the background when they apply?
Exactly.
Why can't you do it first?
Well, that's,
At least with the communication people.
that was the problem. The problem was, is the backgrounds take time for the detective bureau to do it. They were understaffed. So that was that's the problem with the backgrounds to the police department and 911, law enforcement 911. So that's what Todd was saying. Finally, we have staffing levels back up to full speed, and it should do that. But providing the offer contingent on the background kind of speeds up the process, because we can bring them forward and they can still, so they check the criminal and the sex offender list and everything like that, but then they can dive deeper into the background while they're training. So we have put that process in place.
But can't we third party that out anyway in the times when we don't have the detectives?
Well, it was very expensive and it took longer.
It's very
Yeah.
expensive, but
Okay.
so is overtime.
But expensive wasn't the only part, it was also not the
There-
quality.
Yeah.
It wasn't
It wasn't
the
just-
quality, plus the applicant then had to pay for some of the fees that we don't have to
For a
charge.
911 background
Yes.
check?
We did it for 911 and police. We tried a trial, and it was not a quick process.
We were actually getting some of the information that they weren't getting on the background.
Definitely a topic for further conversation with the board.
Absolutely.
Gina, since we've talked considerably, every time we turn around, we're hearing the fact that we can't get stuff. We can't get parts, we can't get cars, we can't get all the stuff. I think it's time that your staff needs to rethink this and get outside the box and maybe bring some different purchasing procedures to us. Maybe we need to be approving, a budget more than a year ahead. Maybe we need to be approving some of these items that we know we're gonna have to buy. Water meters, maybe we need to be giving approval for multiple years ahead, so we can start getting ahead of this. And then, like Todd said at the Chiefs meeting, why aren't we ordering cars today for next year?
As soon as they open them, we probably will be coming to you to ask for that.
And this board needs to be
That's what we were
giving
talking about.
authority for that for, years ahead.
Well, I will go back to, and we're working on, I know the asset management plan and staff has done a really good job last few years. I know we've still got work to do because they don't know it yet, but the next month, what I'm gonna start asking them to do is expansion items, not just replacement. But if we can get that shored up, it's kind of like the pavement maintenance plan. When you know and everybody agrees that the priorities, then you can look into 2023 and 24 a little easier. And so we got there with some of the maintenance plans. So if we can get there with the fleet or equipment, then that also might be when you have, it's like, okay, well, we see this happening in 6 months, even though we'll be in a new budget. So I think that might help that conversation. We're hoping what comes up goes down in the economy, but.
Before we go, any other questions? I think it's important I tell you a little bit about what I've been doing in my last 3 weeks, and I'll make it quick. But you are talking to a guy, I did go to the Legends Group in Kansas City and visited with them for a day a couple of weeks ago. I've been hearing both sides, one side, I wanted to meet with them. So I went out and spent the day with them. I'm excited about the project down here. I know there's still some things missing in the TIF package, but good group of people, and Ed's helped talk to me. I met with our Mark Spikerman from our side. I met with them. He actually feels real good about this. I believe in these folks from everything I hear. So all I say is, I know the package is still not 100%, but take a look at it, go to the TIF meeting, ask questions. But there's nobody else right now that's jumping to do anything with that mall. And this would be huge for Lake of the Ozarks. So give that some serious thought and maybe hold your reservations back. I know it's not been exactly the way it should be so far, but I feel good about them, and I think this would be great for us. I also had the opportunity, I went down to Bentonville, Arkansas last Thursday, Friday, part of the Magic Dragon with the bike trails, the bike paths, everything. That is another huge thing for our variety. And a side note, I drove my minivan, it's out in the parking lot that has 370,000 miles on it. I only throw that out there because of wanting to buy vehicles. I know it's tough to keep vehicles going sometime, but that minivan used to go 60,000 miles a year. and I took care of it. It's never clean on the inside, but mechanically it's sound. If I need to put $500 into the air conditioner, or $500 into something, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying a $40,000 vehicle, especially for the interim. I just throw that out there, that maintenance is probably something we have to really look at rather than buying for a while. But that Magic Dragon, there's a lot of talk about there. When it comes here, the bike path is gonna be huge, folks. I mean, pay attention when that comes to you. This parkway down here, the idea they have, I mean, I'm not gonna talk for them, but creating something that people can ride their bicycles to shop and to walk and bring a whole nucleus of people to Lake Ozarks that maybe aren't into the boating, aren't into the bar hopping, at least not for the whole week. Take their family, do that for one day, but then the rest of the time, shop and that sort of thing. Also, I've had the opportunity, thank you, Ty and Mike, to tour the airports. That's another opportunity I think is huge. Let Lacey find the possibilities there are just phenomenal. Keep an open mind to that too. We've been buying that property. The things we could do, we had our own airport, we brought in commercial flights, and you take all those three of those things working together. You think, well, how can you bring planes are gonna come here 12 months out of the year because it's Lake Ozarks. When you open up that mall, you open up these bike paths, they'll come here at least 10 months out of the year. You know, maybe not January and February, but that airport is just a great idea out there. It's a great job out there, Ty. Other things I've been doing, the Citizens Advisory Committee, I have appointments for that, appointments for the TIP program. The appointments will be on the next agenda. I do have plans to utilize the Citizens Advisory Committee a little bit more than in the past. I really want to get people involved that are in the community, business people, residential people, and sign projects to them. I wanted to take a look at several things, that some code policies on signs. Also the food truck, I think is something I want them to look at. Also the bike trails, that sort of thing. And I've been meeting with most of the department heads and some of the aldermen. And I'm gonna be going with the chief next month to the what do you call it, the personnel
Department staff meeting.
Department staff meeting, just to introduce myself, who I am. I've met with many of the department heads. I plan to meet with all of them. I also plan to be very transparent. I'm here a lot. And I want to meet regularly with the aldermen so we don't see each other once a month or twice a month at meetings. So we have a time to come into the office, let's talk, let's visit, know who I am a little bit more, because I plan to be here quite a bit and be very, very visible. I've been going to tons of meetings. I am a reader. I don't read books, but I read things. And Ed's been great with providing me stuff. I'll ask him a question, and he'll answer it, but they don't hand me a pile like this. Well, here, if you want to read more about it, here you go. So appreciate, and people here at City Hall really have been great welcoming me here. Doug's been a great job. He's given me some stuff for my office. And I still, if anybody has a lake picture sitting at home they want me to borrow or just put up, my office is still not done. I brought a few things in, but I'll be welcome to take those off your hand. I think that's it, folks. I plan to be very transparent, so I do have a new cell phone number. I'll probably use that more than I do my landline. I still am learning how to put my calendar on my phone, but this is my calendar. This is kind of the way I operate. But any questions, any problems, any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be forthright with you, be forthright with me, and then hopefully we'll make this place even better than it is right now. And I really think this is prime, folks. I really do. There are so many things going on right now, and I've been meeting with investors about putting in some hotels and trying to think outside the box a little bit. And I was talking to Mike a little bit and Carrie about what property do we own and why can't somebody build on here? And they said, well, because this is zoned for commercial and they really can't do it because it's not as expensive as residential. Well, let's think outside the box a little bit. If a property costs $1 million and they can get $1 million under if they sell commercial, but only $500,000 residential, well, let's see if we can find some funds to help out the other 500, and let's bring some energy bills and stuff. So I want to think outside the box. I tend to jump in head first, and so sometimes I need to be held back a little bit, but I do think it's prime here for Lake Ozarks and Osage to make this place just awesome. And people are coming, folks, and they need a place to stay, they need a place to stuff to do that's not just bar hopping. They need waiters and waitresses to help on you and, staff them. And so feel free to reach out to me and let's think outside the box a little bit and let's go. Any questions for me? All right. I don't think we need a motion to leave.
You just explain that to me.
We're adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.